A wild Karen got arrested with a felony. Background, I'm a 35-year-old father of 2 boys. I have PTSD due to time overseas, and I have the physical scars to match the mental scars. I have an incredible wife that knows me and knows what situations I should avoid. My children are amazing, but this story revolves around my youngest son and my service dog. Jay, my youngest son, has autism, and we share a special bond because some of the things that set him off also put my teeth on edge. Spike, my English bulldog, he's my service dog. He's well-trained, lazy, judgmental, and overall uninterested in anything that he can't eat. He's also very in tune to Jay and my emotions and will provide a distraction when we get overwhelmed. Basically, he's like, oh, you're stressed? Here, scratch my butt, you'll feel better and I'll get attention. It's a win-win. My family recently moved to Texas. Because we now live very close to an amusement park, we got memberships. Shout out to the park for being amazing when it comes to special needs. This particular park in Arlington, Texas has a special program for autistic people. They have rooms set aside to chill at if you're overstimulated so you can relax and then go back out. Get overstimulated again and around you go. With Jay, we also don't have to wait in lines. This is a huge thing, and the cause of this story, the park has a pass that lets you skip most of the lines, and they charge an arm and a leg for this. However, with that pass, you still end up in a line with the hundreds of people that also have a pass. Jay gets no lines at all. We get a special pass and we go in through the exit. The worker signs the pass and we go on the ride. Jay has a favorite ride, the log ride. There has been days that we would ride the log ride over and over and then eat. We also have the food pass which we pay for, and then go back to the log ride. On this day, T, my oldest, and Jay wanted to go on the log ride, so we made our way to the exit and left wife and Spike in the shade because somebody has to stay with him and bulldogs and rides don't mix. As we're going in the exit, a woman started screaming at us. I have absolutely no hearing on my right side, thanks high pressure wave, so didn't consider it worth turning my head to listen. Now, because we ride this ride almost exclusively, the workers on this ride know us by name and sight. Jay even talks to them, which is rare. We go in, show the pass, sit and ride. This time though, Tabitha, I'll call her Tabitha because Karen is overused, the woman that was screaming at us as we were walking through, made her way to where the speedy pass ends at the ride, where a red shirt will check her pass and let her go on her way. She didn't even want to ride. She just wanted to yell about us going in through the exit and how we're abusing the system. Now, anybody who looks at Jay can see that he's in a world of his own and wouldn't be surprised if he's literally reading the future or talking to aliens. He's awesome. The red shirt tries to calm her down. T's getting upset because he's a normal 9-year-old and adults yelling is uncool. Jay making his excited sounds and waiting for the log to stop so he can get in. We get in, and as we float away, we still hear Tabitha screaming. The ride ends and we exit. We figured we'd never see Tabitha again, but obviously it didn't go that way. Tabitha appeared like a dark brother after making the sacrifice. Elder Scrolls reference. Hooting and screaming. She's screaming that just because Jay is an R word, that doesn't mean that we get extra rights. Oh god. The screaming causes Jay to let out his super screech. Now, anyone that knows autism knows that autistic kids have superpowers. In Jay's case, it's a supersonic, ear-shattering, high-pitched screech that makes your eyes swim and makes it feel like things in your head are moving that shouldn't. This whole time, Spike was laying on the ground in the froggy position, as bulldogs do, just looking at Tabitha like she's a rabid dog but not worth getting up for. As we're being screamed at, I see 2 officers approaching from behind Tabitha. I smile. My smile must have broke Tabitha because she hauls off and kicks Spike. This flipped my switch because now my family is under attack and I start to react. Before I could make contact, Tabitha is already in the air being carried, half dragged away while being cuffed. Now in front of me is a well-dressed and pissed-looking officer. He tells us he heard the screech and started heading to it because they thought a ride broke or something bad happened. I take the time to unflip that switch and examine Spike. He's limping and crying. I feel his hips and I feel that his hip is dislocated. I jokingly ask the officer to walk away and let me get some. He of course has no humor to this but can also tell I had a career. He asked what happened and we all explain what happened from A to Z. He asked if Spike is a service dog. I say yeah. He smiles. I'm not in a smiling mood but it catches me off guard. He explains that in Texas to intentionally injure a service dog is a felony. By this time park security arrived and issued a trespass order to Tabitha. The officers ask if I want to press charges. I look at Spike and I look back. Yes, I say. Tabitha and her tiny mouse-like husband start to freak out. As Tabitha is loaded onto a golf cart, we hop on a cart too and we leave to go to the vet. The vet fixed Spike and all is well. We went back the next day with Spike in a stroller. No one batted an eye and everybody loves the bulldog in a stroller. I let people pet him. He's a hoot and the park is an amazing place. I've been contacted by the investigating officer and have given depositions. I may have to testify, but I look forward to sitting on the bench with Spike on my lap. Even though we read stuff like this every single day, I still can't believe how awful some people can be. Like how gross of them to do this. Saying the stuff to your son and also kicking your dog? That's disgusting. I'm so glad he recovered and everything was okay. The next one is called Karen Wants to Rename My Dog. So this one's a bit of an inside joke with my family. For some context, I have a dog named Anya. Well, one day day when I was calling her inside, when she was still a young puppy, I said onion by mistake, and she came running. So it's kind of been a running joke in my family that we call her Onion instead of Anya. She responds to both. This happened during Christmas. I was in Petco with my dogs picking out toys for their Christmas and getting some kitty litter. A kid, maybe about 14, came up and he was picking out a toy for his dog. He saw mine and asked if he could pet him. I didn't mind and I let him pet my dogs. He asked their names and I say, oh, the black one is Onion. I just let it slip out of habit. And the black and white one is Pippin. Kid, Onion? That's a weird name for a dog. Me, did I say Onion? Oh no, her name is Anya. When she was a puppy, I called her Onion by mistake. It just became a running joke. Kid, that's really funny. Then we hear the clearing of a throat and Karen appears. She was nice at first and then she asked about my dogs and we just chat for a minute. And then the kid tells her about how I call Anya Onion. Karen, why would you name a dog after a vegetable? That is inappropriate. Me, well, her name is Anya and I call her Onion as a joke. Karen, and what kind of name is Anya? Wouldn't Princess do better? Me, no, Anya is Anya. I have to leave now. Have a good day. Karen, no, name your dog Princess. It's a good dog name. Nah, surely not. Me, well, if you really want to do this, her real name is Anastasia, which means brought back to life. She was found in such a state that you would have thought she was dead. I thought the name to be more than appropriate, so if you excuse me, I turned back and Karen continued to whine about how Princess was such a good name for my dog and how she deserves her more than I do because I named her a horrible Russian name. I paid for my things and I left. Dogs were not harmed in the making of this post. Edit, I wanted to say that I did Anya because I was obsessed with Anya from Buffy. Yeah, I don't understand why somebody would say this. Like, what are they doing? Oh yeah, I don't like the name that you've given your dog. For some reason, I feel like I'm in a place to tell you what you should name your dog though. Like, what's wrong with people? Name your dog Princess right now. The next one is called Karen Wants to Make Me Leave My Own Party. Some context here, I was in the army for 5 years and I was near an IED when it exploded. I have scars on my arms and legs. The cast, me, my wife, Karen's husband, Karen and her kid. This took place 2 years ago and we had a semi-big 4th of July party. It was hot out and I had shorts and a tank top on. Some scars were visible but most were fixed with surgery. The main one was on my arm and running from my shoulder to my elbow. A kid asked me why I had it and I just said that I got hurt. He just sort of walked away to his mum and dad. I was standing at the grill like any dad at a party and Karen stormed over and just started yelling that what I told her son traumatized him. I was confused for a minute before she pointed at my arm. Apparently I was an awful person for doing this. The yelling attracted my wife and Karen's husband. The husband was mad at me because I made his wife angry. My wife tried to calm them down with me to no use. Karen yelled that I need to leave my own party because I was big and scary to the kids and she thought that I was threatening to her. I apologized for looking scary, but I also explained that I will not leave my own party, but her family is free to leave. We ended up just asking them to leave after a loud argument. The worst part is that I burnt the burgers. Wow, imagine being at somebody else's house and feeling like you can act like this. Ugh, it's so bad. Like, I know I'm at your party, but I'm gonna get upset. I'm gonna ruin the mood. I'm gonna throw a tantrum in front of everybody while they're all trying to have a good time. It's so bad. Even reading about it is so frustrating, let alone having to deal with somebody like this. I'm sorry that my commentary after the post is pretty short. I just don't know what to say anymore. Karen gets sweet instant karma for messing with a tree that isn't hers. I was not directly involved in this interaction, but it did occur in the same street I belong to, and the tree could be seen from my house as it was less than 100 feet away. So some brief backstory is necessary to understand the direness of Karen's situation. Karen, along with her daughter, owns a house in a street along with 7 other people, including me. The street is somewhat private, although it isn't gated. It shares many resources and services that sets it apart from the rest of the community. Basically, it was originally empty land in the middle of an already existing neighborhood, bought privately by a group who built houses and sold them. For these reasons, this street has an HOA representative, Homeowners Association, and they share things like lawn maintenance and street repair costs. For example, the street splits the cost for repairing stuff like street lights, and the people that mow lawns do the entire street at a time. Karen and her daughter are rarely seen in this small street, and they instead rent their house out to newcomers every few months or so. I've only seen them in person a few times since I moved here. On their most recent return a few days ago, they decided to have the tree out in their front yard trimmed down before the next tenant arrived. Unfortunately, this tree belongs to the street, and she has no jurisdiction tampering with it, and she knows it. She made a half-assed attempt to call the HOA board, and when they didn't reply right away, she took the initiative to cut the tree to her desire. This morning, a group of workers came in a truck and loud power tools to cut several branches off this large tree. The Indian dude, ID, came out first to complain, and later came the old lady, OL. They've both been living here for a long time, and they both understand the rules. The conversation was distant from my house, especially since I chose not to go outside and join the argument, but it went along the lines of the following. ID, hey, you can't cut cut that tree? Karen, well, it's on my property. ID, actually, it's not. Tell them to stop cutting it. You need to contact the HOA first. Karen, I did and they didn't respond, so it's not a big deal if I just trim it, okay? OL, any change affects the value of the entire street and every house on it. You have to stop it. Karen, oh my god, it's just a tree. Just give me a break, okay? For those that don't understand, the entire street sort of has a common theme to it, where every house has a similar design, and each having a tree is part of said design. Stripping this mature tree down to a couple of branches completely ruins the look of the street. ID walks up to the workers who are basically already finished. Guys, please stop for now. Karen steps in front of ID. Hey, back off. ID puts his hand on her shoulder to push her away. Karen, stop being aggressive. It goes on for about 30 minutes. The entire time, Karen is being extremely rude, interrupting people and basically whining incessantly. ID, OL, and the other neighbors watching knew that they couldn't do anything without contacting the HOA first. They certainly didn't want to touch her, and they couldn't do anything with the workers because they were hired by Karen. This entire time, her daughter didn't say anything and stood at the doorway of her house. The workers continue with the tree, and in no time it was finished. About an hour passes when ID and OL return with news from HOA. It was true that Karen couldn't touch the tree, and everybody knew that, but what Karen didn't know was that the consequences were extremely straightforward and relentless. When they began to explain to Karen her remaining options, she had a biatchy smirk of victory on her face, but it didn't take long for it to be completely wiped away. HOA policies dictate that she has to completely replace the tree, which means that she needs to hire people to come dig the tree out, pay for a new tree, pay for it to be planted, and pay for the lawn that'll be inevitably torn up as the tree is being replaced. And if she doesn't comply, her house will be put on lien and will be no longer considered an extension of our private street. For those that aren't fluent in real estate terms like me, this means that Karen can't sell, rent, or refinance her property until said conditions are met. Even if she complies right away, her new tenant will be delayed at least a week or more while the tree's being dug up. This is just such a sweet and fitting end to her entitled attitude. In total, she'll be set back thousands of dollars for essentially nothing, except lacking consideration for those around her. I'm not entirely clear on the cost, but I expect it to be at least $10,000. Moral of the story, don't mess around with trees. They have countless lawsuit and HOA strings attached to them. And don't be a biatch to your neighbors. Edit, I reread my post and I decided that I didn't do as good as a job as I wanted to, explaining why the Karen deserves her justice. I forgot to mention that she did flip everybody off and she threatened to call a lawyer. She acted really childish overall and kept repeating the same phrase of something like, "You can't touch me. I did nothing wrong," over and over while interrupting people. Her daughter wasn't too much better, but you can't really blame her for trying to defend her mother a little bit. She probably just didn't understand what her mother really did. Her daughter was like, "Stop shouting, don't get aggressive," etc. Edit number 2. After talking with some of my neighbors, it turns out that Karen was a biatch long before I moved here. A long time ago, there was a rule that you couldn't park your car on your driveway, which most people thought was stupid. I think it's stupid too. The rule was set when the street was built because people wanted it to look nice or something. Apparently, Karen took this rule way too serious, and she kept on giving tickets to the old lady's husband. I mean, come on, what a way to get to know your next door neighbor. Before long, the entire street voted the law out 7-1. Guess who wanted to keep it? Karen also locked the back gate of the street closed and didn't give the key to anybody because she thought she was entitled to control who gets to use the community gate. Too bad I wasn't there at the argument because I could have transcripted more of what they said. Karen kept on trying to change the subject and put the blame on OL for letting her bamboo fall into her backyard. Bruh, old lady was sick that day, so what an a-hole for arguing with a sick old lady. I'd also like to mention the trees. Yeah, trees I realised after looking closer at her yard that she cut were 2 cypress trees and a deciduous tree that grows red seeds in hard pods. I forget the name of them. The cypress trees she cut down were towering and magnificent. She trimmed them down halfway and they'll never regrow because both are at least 20 years old. That's all I can remember to add. Thank you for reading. Yeah, they sound like they'd be hard enough to live next to normally, let alone in a homeowners association. Yeah, I actually can't imagine living next to somebody like this. Surely you'd have to move. Next one is called Karen lets her kids wake everybody up at 2 a.m. So I've just come back from a coaching trip from the UK to Disneyland Paris. It was a wonderful trip apart from one family who decided they could do whatever they wanted without any consequence. To set the scene, me and my 2 friends have just arrived at the bus stop and are waiting for the coach. In front of us is a family of 4 adults and 3 children, a young girl around the age of 10, a boy also around the age of 10, and a teenage boy. All 3 are sat on the floor and are attempting to play a card game. However, the girl is screaming at the top of her lungs telling the other kids how to play the game. The adults tried to intervene once, got sworn at by the child, and then gave up. Me and my friends exchanged glances before resorting to sending each other memes silently voicing our discontent. Luckily, we were seated at the front of the coach and the family were at the back. We could still hear the girl yelling all the way, but we let it slide because, hey, we're going to Disneyland and they're probably just excited. We went on to have a wonderful couple of days in Disneyland, completely forgetting that this family family even existed until it was time to come home. You see, dear reader, we're broke, so we had to book a coach that left Disney at 8 p.m, arriving back in London at 4:30 a.m. It's a given that you'd want to sleep on the coach. Well, as we waited for our coach to come and collect us, there we were reminded of that child's piercing screams and shrieks while she ran around the car park and in front of cars while the adults once again did nothing. My friends and I exchanged worried glances, but it was only the beginning. Once on the coach, people started pulling out neck pillows and blankets, ready to attempt to sleep, but not that family. They talked loudly about their trip and complained that the coach driver hadn't put the radio on. People were already grumbling, but the family paid them no mind. When we got to Calais, it got even worse. The driver was asking for a volunteer to collect everybody's passports and bring them to the front. One of the adults and the girl's mother volunteered and had to sit at the front with the driver while sorting the passports. Well, the child decided that was an invitation to run up and down the aisle between her parents before loudly demanding that her mother sing happy birthday in Welsh. This was at midnight. Oh God. After border control had checked our passports, the mother decided to hand some of them to her children, but that wasn't good enough for the little girl, who kept on screaming at her mother to give her more. Apparently no was not a word that she could understand, and she simply kept on screaming. Even when people stated they were not comfortable with children handling their passports, the kids still got to hand them out. And then we finally boarded the ferry at 1:35 a.m, ready for a quiet crossing. We were wrong. Initially, my friends and I had sat in an area with a kids' play area. We quickly realised and relocated to a quieter area of the ship so we could try and grab some sleep. People around us were sprawled out on benches with blankets over their heads, and mothers had sleeping children in their laps. We found a quiet corner and we started to doze off. Then we heard it, that same piercing shrieking, all from that girl. They were running up and down the length of the ship, shouting and shrieking as they want. People were being startled awake every single time they went by. Other kids were beginning to cry because they were tired. The teenage boy was winding up the younger two, making them shout even more. The adults of the group were absolutely nowhere to be seen. Eventually I snapped. After a particular piercing shriek, I yelled, "Quiet please, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and people are trying to sleep." Several other murmurs of agreement surrounded me. They went silent, looked at me and then ran off. I knew what was coming. We all knew. In marched one of the adults, not the mother, just another one of the adults. "What did you say to the kids?" she demanded, loudly of course. I said, "Quiet please, there are people trying to sleep." I gestured to the people groggily emerging from their blankets to see what the commotion was. "If you've got a problem, speak to an adult. Don't shout at kids." "Well, where were you?" "Down there," she points. "They were at the opposite end of the ship, so why weren't you with them? They're hyper. Kids are gonna be hyper." Oh God. Oh, people can be so annoying. Again, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and people are trying to sleep. Well, you should have come and talked to us. How was I supposed to know where you'd be? Oh, whatever, just don't shout at kids. Oh my God, take a hike. And then they left. Was it the end? Oh no, they continued their shrieking and running. When we attempted to find the adults as they had requested, they'd moved and they were nowhere to be found. Again, the girl also tried to stare me out a couple of times. I think she was trying to intimidate me, which is laughable. Eventually, the ferry trip came to an end and I waited until the last possible second to get back on the coach so that they wouldn't have to walk past me. I was thanked several times by fellow ferry passengers in both French and English for my attempts to shut those kids the hell up. I do wonder how much of a problem it'd be if I woke their kids up at 2 a.m. Yeah, that's right, OP. They'd absolutely lose their mind if you did that to them. But oh, kids are kids, they're gonna be hyper, is what they say to you when they're doing it. Oh, that's infuriating. I can't believe people are like this, and for them to get upset at you because they weren't looking after their own kids. A tactical Karening. The Karen gets Karened. I was witness to possibly the most hilarious Karen interaction I've ever seen. In this, I was just an onlooker, and I didn't play a part at all. There are 3 players in this dialogue. K, the Karen, UC, the nicely dressed but unfortunate customer who Karen decided worked there, and HC, the hilarious customer who, well, it's all become clear. Saturday, yesterday in fact, I went to pick up some groceries at Asda, a British company owned by Walmart. Edit until February, but less trashy. As I'm shopping with my trolley, I hear the harumph of an approaching Karen behind me, but to my surprise, she walks straight past me to UC, demanding this, that, and the other, to which UC responds, "Sorry, but I don't work here." As Karen starts accusing him of lying, I figured that I'll stick around and see what happens. It might be funny, but if she assaults the guy or accuses him of something, I'll be a witness. As I'm listening to UC reiterate that he doesn't work for Asda, and Karen repeatedly accuse him of lying, another customer, HC, comes past and addresses the Karen in a big booming voice. "Finally, a manager," he booms at her. "Some woman just accused me of not helping her when I'm a customer here. Now what are you gonna do about it?" Oh, the irony. Karen turns to HC and says, "What? I'm not a manager. What do you..." But gets cut off mid-sentence by HC. "Of course you're a manager. I've seen you talking to customers. Now you're going to help me." Karen tries to explain that she was talking to UC, who she says works there, but in the confusion, Yusei had wisely ducked out, leaving Karen saying, I was talking to, as she gestures to an empty space. Suddenly she's alone. HC, well, hanging around speaking to staff isn't very professional, is it? You should be doing your job, helping customers, starting with me. Karen then just screams, I don't freaking work here, F off, and walks off, clearly upset, abandoning her shopping trolley. That's a shopping cart to those who live in the States. In the process, Yusei, who's been waiting on the next aisle, walks back at this point and says, she's gone. Yeah, well, says HC, that got rid of her, smiles vaguely and just continues shopping like nothing happened. HC, whoever you are, you're a legend. That's so funny. You would have been so happy that you stopped to listen to this OP. Like, oh my god, I could have missed this unbelievably beautiful interaction. That's so awesome. The next one is called I Shut Down a Karen by Being Super Loud. I'm on mobile, yada yada, you know the drill. I left retail a few years ago and I noticed a dramatic improvement in my physical and my mental health, largely due to the reduced contact with the listless cattle that you see in the stores. However, it seems that the customer service vibe never completely washes off, because I was recently accosted in a liquor store by a woman with a jean jacket and the all too familiar haircut that we all know and hate. The particular store in question is part of a chain setup, like a smaller Sam's Club, but the only thing they sell are booze and cigars. Great place to blow a paycheck. I got to leave work a little early due to working some extra hours at the beginning of the week, and I was completely fried. The plan was to grab a craft beer that I'd never tried, and maybe some slightly pricier bourbon and just chill. My work's dress code was flexibly business casual, so I was wearing dress shoes, slacks, and a dark polo, which is regrettably similar to the store's uniform. Only some of the associates wore aprons, and all of them had the store name embroidered on the polos. I was knelt down near the end of the beer aisle when I overhear a woman talking to her boyfriend one row over. They're trying to find a nitro stout, and they aren't seeing it because the aisle they're in sorts by local beer, and the one they want is from out of state, conveniently about 2 shelves over from me. I speak up and I wander around the corner to let them know where I saw it, and they thank me and they ask if I've had it before. We chat briefly about 1 or 2 others that we've had that are pretty similar, but not as good, and then I get back to my browsing, and then I feel a tap on my shoulder. Karen, excuse me, sorry, am I in your way? Karen, no, but can you help me find where the brand of whiskey I'd never heard of is? Me, what kind of liquor is that? Karen, I think it's a whiskey. Okay, do you know if it's a bourbon or an Irish whiskey? Or Karen pulling a mock sad face, I don't, sorry. Me, well, the whiskies are 3 aisles that way, with the bourbons on the left hand side and everything else on the right hand side, unless it's scotch, which is over here. Karen, aren't you gonna take me there? Me, sorry, I've got to pick up my own stuff and then get home. There should be somebody around here who knows the selection a bit better. Karen, I can't believe you won't help me. That's a really rude. Me, lady, I don't work here, I just drink a lot. Karen, I want to talk to your manager. Oh my god, why do they never listen? At this point, I was yet unseasoned to the ways of the mid-50s entitled boomer trash, so I shook my head and I turned around to keep looking for my own stuff. I hear a soft, scorned little gasp behind me, and I feel the nails digging into my shoulder. Preface, I'm not a well-adjusted individual. I have a family history of untreated conditions, and I was lucky to get out of primary and secondary school with PTSD and all of my teeth. My bodily autonomy and personal space are very important to me, and while I am patient and understanding in almost every other regard, this is one issue that you don't push with me. The split second between feeling her dig in and realizing what's going on, my brain's RPMs have buried the needle and I'm half a restrained impulse from biting off her manicured princess fingers and gouging out her eyes. I opt instead to take a lesson from our primate cousins in Dragon Ball Z. When crap gets bad, yell to assert your power. Me with a roar so loud it left me hoarse for like 2 days. Get your hands off me. The store goes dead quiet. I grab her hand, wrench it off me and shove her away with both hands. She stumbles and bumps into a shelf but doesn't fall over. She's looking at me the way that a cow looks at an oncoming train. Eyes saucer wide in disbelief and incredulity. The fear not quite managing to take hold yet. She opens her mouth to say something that was probably "how dare you" or something similar, but I'm already frothing at the mouth. Every D&D barbarian player has a rage boner for what my face looks like right now. Me still screaming and stumbling over my words a bit. Never freaking touch me ever. I'll rip your cheap ass in half. Leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. Every time it looks like she's gonna interject, I cut her off with another "leave me alone." By now, management and one other associate are booking it over to defuse what they're sure is going to be imminent violence, and by all appearances they're right. My face is red, my body's shaking, and while I'm not that big of a dude, I'm poised for a fight against a comparatively small woman. Manager, so you need to calm down. Me, I am calm, she needs to keep her hands to herself. Karen, he assaulted me, call the police. Me, not as loud, voice cracking. Go ahead lady, I'll wait. You started this. Associate, so you need to come with me. Me, I'm buying my beer and I'm leaving. Check your security tape, she came after me first. Karen to the manager, I want him fired. They still think think you work there? I told you I don't work here. What the hell's wrong with you? Manager, sir, I told you to calm down. Me, look at this. I pulled my shirt collar over and I showed them where her nails dug in. There's no blood, but it's pretty obvious the marks are fresh and that I didn't do it to myself. Me, you want to get the cops involved? Fine, pull the damn tapes and we'll talk about pressing charges. It seems to have dawned on Karen that she might have messed up. She hasn't said anything. There's a crowd watching us at this point. I see at least one cell phone recording. I turn to a random person standing nearby. Did you see what happened? Young guy. Not all of it, but I saw her holding you and you pushed her away. Me, voice cracking like a teenager. Thank you. At this point, I grab the six-pack I was looking at and I start to leave. Manager, so you need to... Me, I'm leaving. You want to call the cops? I'll wait for you to check the security tapes, but then I'm pressing charges. I walk towards the tills and I set my beer on the counter. The attendant at the desk was looking over my shoulder at the manager, but he must have given her the okay because she scans me out and I leave with my beer. I made it about halfway home before I had to pull over and weep. The adrenaline crash hit me super hard, and I ugly cried for like 5 minutes until I could get enough composure to drive. I didn't go back to that store for a few months. Either they don't remember or it was settled after I left. The moral of the story, embrace your inner howler monkey. Don't give them a chance to think or wind up their usual indignant tirade. Wow, that was so wild. And they still thought you were an employee? That's so unbelievable. And like this comment says, the best way to deal with crazy is to out crazy. Well done. Yeah, how awful. Even if you did work there, imagine thinking you can treat an employee like this. Oh, some people are so bad. Sorry you had to deal with this, OP. The next one is called Karen versus Retail Veteran. Somebody in my friend group keyed me in on this lovely subreddit after they had a good laugh at some of my stories. Over the years, I've grown to loathe people who treat retail employees like garbage, and I go out of my way to make a fool of them, so I'll share one story now. I worked for years in retail before switching careers. I went from dealing with people who asked for items based entirely on what the people in said items commercial were wearing, to teaching children, and this is one story that makes me think the children are by far the smarter breed. For a while I worked as a trainer for a very popular cell phone company. I would often visit carriers and do events for customers and train employees on relevant new features and items, so I was almost always dressed very well. The most dressed down I ever got was a polo, dress pants and dress shoes because I wanted to give a good and professional impression. However, my style of dress came with the greatest Karen bait known to man, a silver name tag. Beyond the hundreds of times I was mistaken for an employee while at the stores, this story takes place when I went grocery shopping after work one evening. That should be enough background, so on with the story. I finished up later than usual, and I was browsing the groceries for the next couple of days at a semi-supermarket whose logo is a bullseye. I had a cart with several frozen items that my wife loves, some snacks for my son, some dog food for my dog, and various other small things to carry me through. I was browsing some spices, debating on if I had enough of a few kinds to make chili, when I hear a faint noise behind me. I squeeze in a bit closer, trying to make sure that I'm not blocking the aisle. No sense in being rude, right? A second or two go by and my spider sense begins to tingle. And then, dear reader, I hear the dreaded sound that in the retail world is both terrifying and amusing, depending on how far away you're standing. Excuse me. Ah, yes, the mating call of the wild Karen. I turn around to see a specimen of at least 40, trying desperately to be mistaken for her own daughter, in what I can only assume was a pair of yoga pants, furry boots, a shirt that was strategically unbuttoned, and a huge pair of sunglasses acting as a solar panel for her "let me speak to your manager" haircut. My desperate plea for clemency in the form of her own ability to notice a mistake came immediately, as I pushed my cart further away and I swept my arm where I was standing. Sorry, didn't know I was blocking you, but alas, this story would not have made it here if that was all she needed to do. No, Karen did not want to graze the spice rack. She had used her cosmic powers on me without me realizing, because now I was no longer shopping for dinner. I had been granted employment, and Karen was not pleased at my performance so far. No, I need you to help me find some food item I don't want to malign by naming. I'm a smartass by nature, you can tell, and my wife often jokes that I'm paid well to tell people where they can stick it and make them happy to hear it, but these skills are lost on the wild Karen. So is the fact that the store uniform is khaki pants and a red shirt, while I'm in a blue and white dress shirt, dress pants and wearing a company logo jacket that doesn't remotely look like I'm an employee. I decide to assume that she's perhaps dazzled in bright lights without her solar panel glasses guarding her beady eyes, so I smile and politely say, "I'm sorry, I don't work here." Her eyes narrow, now looking like the shining black of a shark, and the games have now begun. You're wearing a uniform, don't give me that crap. You can put up that garbage when you're done doing your job. My eyebrow rises and in my head I hear the ringside bell. Okay, Karen, game on. So in my best, I really don't hope you're run over by a stray water buffalo voice and smile. I say, "What was it you needed help finding, ma'am?" I said ma'am and she didn't like it. "Don't show weakness now, we've only started." But in the same condescending tone she wails, "I need so-and-so item. Now show me to it." I nod and I push my buggy along as I head to the back of the store. She doesn't look pleased that I'm bringing bringing the buggy, but if she says anything, she does so under her breath, and I know soon enough she'll have plenty to complain about. So I savor the moment where the only sound is the slap of her boots ricocheting off the floor and on the heels of her feet. I walk several aisles. After a dozen, she starts to huff and puff, and I can hear the faintest grumbling about why it was so hidden away. And why did she have to walk so far? Not directed at me, but I'm not deaf, so I can hear her childish tantrums. Thank God she can't see the evil smile on my face. Passing the last row of groceries, I hang a left, passing seasonal candies, luggage, travel, etc. She's behind me in such a blurry huff of muttering anger. I don't know if she's questioning the marital status of my parents, the life choices that brought her here, or both, but she's not happy, and it sounds more and more like a car that won't start, and less like a person talking to themselves. As we reach the book section, I wheel the cart over and I start down an aisle. Now the Karen is really angry. Where the hell are you going? I'm looking for this item. If you're too stupid to find it, then maybe I should be talking to your manager. This is drawing a crowd from the nearby electronics section. My plan is working out better than I'd hoped. I stop in front of the small children section and I grab a thin copy of what's basically a toddler's first spelling book, a few letters playing with a small child on the cover, and a title about learning the first few letters of the alphabet. Perfect. Walking back to the red-faced Karen, I offer the book. I don't say anything, I just extend my arm showing her the cover. Like most people would, she takes the offered book, looks at it, looks at me, and then basically growls, "What the hell is this? Are you freaking stupid? Where's your manager? You're absolutely awful." Her wailing has attracted at least 2 employees who seem to recognize the whiny wails of the retail native Karen. One is on a small radio, calling who I assume is the manager, while another is coming our way with terror in their eyes that only an entitled middle-aged woman with an attitude problem can cause. With a smile, I gesture to the book in her hands, and I say in the absolute best customer service voice, "Actually, ma'am, I thought since you can't tell the difference between a customer and an employee, you must not be able to read. So I figure this book can help." Stunned, silence. The poor hamster responsible for the complex operation of powering the Karen was working overtime, so when the employee finally makes it to us, they're unaware of what I said, only that I was smiling in a customer service kind of way. Karen was still all mouth agape at what I said. When they tried a polite greeting, "Hello, is there something I can help you with?" Karen was livid. She proceeded to throw the book at me, literally and figuratively, and start screaming. I dodged the book as her house of rage wound up. "How dare you talk to me that way? I want this man's manager right now. He needs to be fired. Oh my God, they still think you work there." Oh no, she still didn't get the point. Maybe I should have started with an easier book, Dr. Seuss, maybe something on tape. She hasn't slowed down, is cussing like a rabid honey badger high on PCP, and somewhere in that string of expletives were words that vaguely made a caveman type sense, mainly short phrases. The employee is trying desperately to put out the fire that is Karen. Her face is so red that I swear smoke is coming out of that horrible dye job, and the distant employee on the walkie is obviously begging for a manager or a priest. I step back away from any flailing pieces and just wait politely, taking a second to text my wife that I was held up and to expect a good story when I got home. Her response, because she knows me, "What did you do now?" I love that woman. When the manager comes, they must have been out of priests. The woman is pulled to the side and he speaks to her, trying to calm her down. The employee standing near me looks at me and with a bewildered look asks me, "What happened?" Not wanting to spoil the punchline, I just kind of made a face and softly said, "Didn't the haircut clue you in?" "Big mistake." The employee chirps with laughter he quickly chokes off. I don't think he expected me to know the dorsal plumage of the wild Karen, but Karen has heard the sound and went from slowly lowering to a shrill string of complaining, back to seething anger. Once again, she was all but frothing at the mouth. After another few minutes, the manager gets her to step aside and comes over to talk to me. He begins asking all sorts of questions that she obviously decided to embellish. "Why did you call her something that I actually didn't say? Did you throw a book at her? Were you following her?" Things like that. Things that could only be claimed with the loosest concept of reality. So, in a pleasant voice, I explained how I was shopping, and she demanded that I show her where an item was, and refused to accept that I didn't work here. This caused the manager to frown as he looked at me. He saw how I was dressed, and I think some light in his eyes actually died, probably realizing he had to actually think worse of humanity than just 5 minutes ago, and it took another piece of his soul with it. I've been there, so I smile and nod as I see him reason out that I was basically kidnapped to find something for this woman, and all the tumblers in his mind seem to fall into place. He must have seen this type of thing often enough to know what happened, or close enough, but I nod and say, "Since she can't read and might be colorblind, I got her a book on the alphabet instead. I figure if she knew how to read it, it'd fix all of her problems." She threw the book at me, cussed like a sailor, and wants you to fire me. Maybe I should have got something in crayon. The employee standing nearby is done for. He begins to laugh, hysterically, full-on belly laughs that send him retreating for a door to their back room nearby. Even as he fades from sight, I can still hear the echoes of his laughter. The manager, a seasoned veteran of the retail war it seems, manages to make his initial chuckle sound like a disapproving and grumble at the retreating employee, but the way his face scrunched up, I know full well he found it at least reasonably funny. Karen is mad that the employee is laughing, having at least the sense to know that she's the butt of the joke, even if she didn't hear said joke. So score 1 for her situational awareness. So she comes over to us while the manager's poor soul begins to wither inside him. She's in full-on complain mode. Corporate this, I know so-and-so person that. It all sounds like the teacher from Peanuts if you've been in actual retail before. Turning with an admirably straight face, the manager holds up a hand and silences her through his weird Karen charming powers. Ma'am, again her eye twitches, I'm gonna have to ask you to stop harassing other shoppers and keep the volume down. A vein in her forehead begins to leap from the skin and do a little dance as she winds herself up for another tirade. He was the one harassing me. She almost reaches around him, jabbing her $2.99 press-ons at me like the predatory talons she wishes they were. The manager, not happy with basically having her almost try to wrap herself around him to get to me, holds up his hands in a very firm voice and says, "Ma'am, you need to calm down. If you can't, then I'll have to ask you to leave." The blubbering, incoherent Karenisms that follow don't translate well to text, and if I had thought I could get away with it, I would have recorded it with my phone. As it was, she protested, swore, threatened, and actually raked her arm down a shelf in a tantrum, knocking down almost everything as she screamed at the manager, and that's when I knew what was coming. She wasn't going to be asked to leave. Oh no, at this point she was about to become a captive audience. The manager called for somebody in the clothing department and over walked 2 women, who, God bless them, wrangled the woman and began to escort her out the front. The employee who'd walked away laughing came over and escorted me back to grocery and told me that she was going to be detained and barred from the store. He was in a good mood, except maybe having to clean up her tantrum, and we joked about the vast level of stupid that we've been graced to see. A few minutes later, I checked out and was walking to the door when 2 police officers walked in. Rather annoyed looking, I left with a smile on my face. Moral of the story? Never inflict yourself on random people and assume they have to put up with your BS. You never know when you'll meet the crocodile hunter of Karens. Yeah, like the other post. Don't bloody treat people like this. Oh my god. That was so fun to read. I got so immersed into that story. And yeah, good job, OP. I feel like we should read one more. Karen tries to get me fired and then says she married my gay cousin. For a little backstory, I'm in my junior year, grade 11, and I'm taking an education course, which basically teaches you how to be a teacher. We have to have field experience or practical work. We get sent to a school and put into a classroom to help the teacher. It's a great way to see if teaching is right for you. Well, the classroom I'm currently stationed at is a pretty good one. I know the teacher pretty well because she was my teacher and my brother's teacher when we were younger. This means she trusts me to do a lot more than other teachers probably would. Her class were having a back to school party and the teacher asked if I'd mind getting some sodas the night before and she'd pay me back for them. The reason she asked is because she forgot them. She's old, it happens. Of course, I agree. I go to our local store and I grab these 12-pack of sodas. There are only 24 students in the class, but I wasn't sure what they liked. Plus, the teachers could have what was left over. I decided to also get a few small gifts like candy or small toys as they were cheap. By the time I finished, my cart was pretty full, but I was obviously shopping and not working. As I'm walking to the till, I decide to go ahead and grab some cheap things for me to have for dinner. I stop my cart and I start reaching up on the shelf to grab things. While I'm turned around, a woman starts digging around my cart. I quickly stop her and I ask her, "What are you doing?" She says, "Well, aren't you stocking shelves? I'm just taking some of the candy." Wow, okay. Now, to be fair, I was still wearing my school uniform, which is pretty similar to the store's. Both are khaki pants and blue polos, but the store shirts have the store's name on the back. I decide to give her the benefit of the doubt and I just say, "No, I'm shopping. I need this candy for school. Please put it back." She starts getting all huffy and says, "You're wearing the uniform? Stop lying or I'll have you fired. My husband is the manager." Now I know she's lying. I know because my cousin is the manager. My cousin is married, but definitely not to her. He's gay. I say, "I know that isn't true. Just give me my candy." I take it back from her and I head to the till. As I'm checking out, I see her complaining to none other than my cousin. I pay and I decide to let her know she was full of crap. I go and give my cousin a big hug and I ask him how his husband was doing. Her face went red and she hurried off. Wow. That's so funny. Hell yeah, OP. That's so awesome. That was so fun to read. It's so awful that people can be like this, but you handled it so well, OP. Karen drops her phone down the elevator shaft. I work for a company that services elevators. This includes calls from our clients as well as answering the emergency phones inside the elevators if people become stuck. 95% of the time that we get a call from inside an elevator, it's just kids or somebody who hit the button by accident. 4% of the time we actually have somebody stuck, and the other 1% of the time, it's Karen. My phone rings, so I glance over to check which language I need to answer in, and I see that it's actually from inside an elevator. I pick it up thinking it's another prank call, find the address in my system, system and prepare to say, hello, is there anyone there? For about 30 seconds and then go back to playing Stardew Valley on my phone. Not today. Today Karen had other plans. I quickly get out the standard intro and to my surprise, there is actually somebody on the other end of the line. Karen, hi, I need to speak to a manager or something. Yeah, she actually said or something with the inflection of a question. Now, there's so much stupid packed into that one question that I'm almost speechless. Let's unpack the stupid, shall we? Stupid point number 1. She's using an emergency elevator phone and wasting an emergency response line's time to make a complaint. I know I said I was playing Stardew Valley, but you're on Reddit. Don't judge me. Stupid point number 2. Her request doesn't even make sense. Does she want my manager? We have thousands of employees and dozens of officers. Does she want the account rep for the building? Does she want the supervisor of the technician who handles her building? Does she want the manager of her local branch? Is this about a bill? I don't know what Karen wants, and I'm pretty sure I left my Nintendo Switch at home, so it can't be that. Stupid point 3. We can't give any information to anybody who's not with building management. In fact, anybody who's not even with the building management should not even be able to know our phone number. At the time, I had no idea, but Karen has already been told by building management and does not know our number, which is why she's calling from the emergency phone. Me, can I ask what this is regarding? Karen, no, give me a manager. Me, well, Karen, the problem is we have hundreds of managers who manage different things. I need to know what type of thing you're having trouble with so I know which manager to transfer you to. Karen, the manager in charge of elevators. By now, my spidey sense is tingling and I'm opening up the building history. Something stinks and it's the all too familiar smell of Karen's BS. Me, please hold while I get the manager of elevators. I place Karen on hold to get her good and wound up before I make her feel stupid. Me, hi Karen, thank you for holding. Before I put you through to the manager of elevators, I just need to confirm, did you call us this morning to request a technician come to retrieve a phone that got dropped down the crack beneath the elevator door on the 9th floor? Karen, no. She knows she's busted. Me, and at that time you were told to contact building management as we cannot dispatch a technician unless the building management requests it or we have somebody trapped in an elevator. Karen, no. She knows what's coming next. Me, and after that, did you call again pretending to be trapped in the elevator with a baby in an effort to bypass the building maintenance and get us to send a technician to the site? Karen, I can hear her starting to tear up. I was trapped in the elevator and there was no ventilation and my baby was getting very hot and I needed to get him to the doctor. Me, I understand. Did you try dialing 911 while you were trapped? Karen, no, because she was about to say she dropped it down the elevator and was realizing she was about to get caught in a lie. It was out of batteries. Me, please hold. I put her on mute to get her even more wound up. Go to the bathroom and then come back. Me, hi Karen, thank you for holding. Karen, nothing. Me, hi Karen, are you still there? Karen, I'm here. Me, okay great, I was worried I'd lost you. Now, when the technician arrived, he found that the elevator was still working and diagnostics showed no errors. In fact, in the 35 minutes between your call and the technician arriving, the elevator was used 8 different times and that there's no record of anybody being trapped. Karen, yeah, that's what he said, but he wasn't there. I was trapped for over an hour with my baby who has a fever. Me, please hold. Eat my sandwich, chicken salad. I love my life. Me, hi Karen, thank you for holding. I just need to confirm, when our technician arrived to have you released from the elevator, were you waiting in the lobby and did you demand he retrieve your phone from the elevator shaft? Karen, yeah. Me, and when he told you to contact building management to get the $900 elevator pit retrieval fee approved, did you begin screaming at him to retrieve your phone immediately or you would get him fired? Karen, well, I wasn't screaming. Me, and then this happened. Who was watching the baby? Karen, what baby? Me, the one you were stuck in the elevator with that had a fever? Karen, oh, she was upstairs. I put her down. Me, so you left an infant alone so you could yell at the technician? Karen, are you telling me how to parent my... Me, please hold. Water my blueberries in Stardew Valley. Me, okay Karen, what I'm going to do right now is I'm putting a note in the system to have your phone retrieved free of charge out of the elevator shaft. Karen, oh thank you so much. Me, you're very welcome. We'll be retrieving it for you on the next scheduled maintenance day, which will be within 3 to 6 weeks. Karen, 3 to 6 weeks? You can't send somebody today? Me, sure, but first you need to contact building management to call us and then approve the $900 elevator shaft retrieval fee, in addition to the $500 fine for faking an emergency. That one you'll be receiving from your landlord. Karen hung up before I was able to transfer it to the manager of elevators. I later spoke with building management, who was livid. Karen had originally spoken to them about the phone, however she refused to be billed for it, so management refused to make the call. Her baby wasn't even sick. In fact, it didn't even exist, unless her baby is 4 cats. I hope she isn't too surprised in 3 to 6 weeks when she gets the shattered pieces of her phone back. Okay, that was really funny. I love the way that they handled this. Like, hey, can I put you on hold for a second? And can I also put you on hold about 10 different times, just to piss you off even more? Next one is called Karen expects a 6-year-old to pay $100 for her son's stupidity. This should be a short story, but it's pretty good. This was when I was about 6 or 7. 7, my friend who we'll name Austin, EK, entitled kid, and his mother Karen, entitled parent, never acted out before, so I was a little bit surprised when this happened. Austin and I were not great friends, but we hung out a little. One day at school, he and I were playing on the playground. All of a sudden, he fell with a loud thud. I was about 2 meters away from him and I ran up to help him up. He was in immense pain, so his mother Karen was called. She took him to the hospital or some crap, I don't know, and turns out he broke his arm. I was the only one who saw this, so nobody else could confirm. Apparently, he told his mother and teacher that I broke his arm. What the hell? His mother then called my parents and said that I had to pay her $100. My mother and father trusted me and declined. She then said that she would sue me, a 6-year-old. See you in court was apparently all her vocabulary was. Fortunately, no court would take her case. Duh. Austin was hated by the whole class after that. Happy ending. Oh my god, what? How is that even real? I'm gonna sue you for everything you've got, 6-year-old. People are so wild. I love reading about it though. The next one is called First Karen Encounter in a McDonald's. Edit, I just choked. Whoever gave me platinum, I now owe my car bet money to you. Also, can y'all stop commenting about my crappy spelling? I'm just a dumbass 14-year-old, okay? I couldn't care less about some stupid spellings. At least I know the difference between the theirs. Usually my town's McDonald's is quiet. Not much happening. I was eating my food, waiting for my friend. I finished my food and then I waited with a coffee for a while before he showed up. We sat at a table talking as we asked our other friends if they could meet us. When the entitled mum turned up. Entitled mum, if you're not eating anything, then leave. I need to sit here. It's a weekend, so all the tables are taken. Me, no, we're clearly having a drink. Entitled mum, I said food. You can walk around with a drink. Friend, we're not moving. We're waiting for people. Entitled mum, my kids need to sit down. Now move. We refused to move because technically we were allowed to be there. She actually ended up leaving the building. She did go to the counter and tell an employee though who walked over and told us that we were okay to be there. Karen left and me and my friend watched her, betting on what car she had as we laughed. Update, I wrote all of this in like 5 minutes while having a drink in my dad's pub. So I didn't get some details in, so I'll write them here. And a quick edit, Coke and water exists. I wasn't drinking alcohol. As much as I would have liked to have been drunk that day, she had 2 young kids who were literally being the loudest little craps you've ever seen. While she was walking off, she just sort of glared through my soul. I swear she was trying to kill me with that stare. Yeah, I don't understand why people feel like they can say stuff like this. Like, oh, you're sitting somewhere you're allowed to be. Well, I have children, so you have to leave. No, they don't. And it's so funny how the employee even came over and said they were okay. Like them going and complaining to the employees didn't do anything, but at least they ended up leaving. The next one is called My Headphones Affect the Education of Karen's Poor Baby. This is my first post on the subreddit, so, you know, yada yada yada. Background, all of this happened about a year ago at a cleaning job I had to pay my way through university. I was registered with a cleaning agency who would send me to various different places to clean, one of which was a very expensive and pretentious private school for kids under 11. Seriously, this place was like Hogwarts, and I went there about once a fortnight. Also relevant is that I have autism, which means I often struggle with loud and high-pitched noises, which made working in a school full of screaming kids quite hard. I worked out a deal with my boss at the school whereby when the kids were out in the playground being super loud, I would clean the places that were off limits to them and wear headphones. When they went into lessons and were quiet, I would do the public spaces, and this all worked out fine. Anyway, onto the story. Cast me, EM, self-explanatory, and B, my boss. So, it's the morning and all the kids are arriving at school, loud as hell, so I start my day cleaning the teacher's break room. I'm wearing my headphones, I'm jamming out, all is well. Then entitled mum bursts through the door, clearly having just dropped off her precious angel. I take out my headphones to see what she wants. Entitled mum, oh, I have the wrong room. I wanted to use the bathroom. Me, no worries, the bathroom is the next door on the right. Entitled mum, were you wearing headphones? Me, yeah. Entitled mum, that's completely unacceptable. I pay over 10 grand a year for the staff at my baby's school to be wearing headphones at work. Me, well, entitled mum, what an awful example to be setting to children, that you can listen to music in the workplace. The teachers take my baby's phone away at the start of the day and you can just wander around with yours. Me, in all fairness, ma'am, the children aren't allowed in this room, and when I'm in spaces where they are allowed, I don't have my phone or headphones on me. Entitled mum, you're being totally unprofessional. It's an attitude like that which means that you're a cleaner and my child will achieve real success in his life. Oh my god, how awful can people be? Me, I'm actually doing this job to pay for my degree. Entitled mum, if that were true, you'd be smart enough to know you don't talk back to people that pay your wages. Your boss will be hearing about this. What, hearing about how they did nothing? Some people are so lame. She storms out and about 10 minutes later she comes back with my boss. I'm feeling stressed out and on the verge of tears. Another side effect of my autism is that confrontation and conflict, or being yelled at, stresses me out beyond belief. I'm seriously relieved to see my boss and I can't wait to see the look on entitled mum's face when my boss tells her that my wearing headphones is okay. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Entitled mum, see, completely unprofessional. Boss, I'm very sorry, Mrs. So-and-so. This is unacceptable. My name, will you please apologize and remove your headphones? Me, but I've been working here for months and I've always worn headphones. You told me it was okay. Boss, it's not okay and we can't accept you working in this school if you do not comply with our codes of conduct. Me, but you said, boss, honestly, Mrs. Entitled Mother, I did not and would not condone such a thing. I was about to start crying because I felt so crappy about the whole situation. And then I thought, screw this. I hate this job. I hate being talked down to by snooty parents, teachers, and kids alike. And my boss lying about my way to appease this entitled mum is the final straw. Entitled mum, well, are you going to apologize? Me? No, find somebody else to deal with your obnoxious staff and entitled brats. I laid down all of my stuff and I walked out and never went back in. My boss at the cleaning agency refused to send the school any more cleaners since they'd blatantly lied after telling the agency it was fine for autistic staff to wear headphones. They also insisted I got paid for a full day's work, which the school did. It was very satisfying walking out of that job. I wouldn't wish working as any kind of manual labor staff in a private school on anybody. Oh, that's so awful, OP. Sorry that you had to deal with that. God, some people can be a-holes for no reason. That's so gross. Imagine thinking you're better than somebody else and talking down to them like this for literally no reason. And also the entitled mum in this. How bloody miserable do you have to be to act like this to somebody for no reason when they're just trying to do their job and you're creating an issue and being awful for no reason? Ugh, yeah, that's so bad. The next one is called Karen Hates the Sight of Blood. I am perhaps fortunate that in my line of work I rarely encounter entitled parents, but reading these stories has definitely reminded me of an incident that took place many years ago. I was working for a small dance and theatre production company in the 70s. One day the boss decided we needed to clean our dance floor, essentially half a dozen rolls of very heavy duty black lino. We did a lot of work with ballet companies and consequently the floor got covered in dancers' rosin, a rather sticky powder-like substance that ballet dancers use on their dance shoes for grip, which needed cleaning down periodically. The quickest way we found to do this was to haul the whole shebang down to the local foreshore along the Thames, roll it out into the water and then give it a good going over with a stiff bristled broom. It worked a treat and it would only take 20 minutes. On this day, it was extremely cold, so I elected to go get into my wetsuit, as I'd have to walk one end of the roll out into the river and I didn't fancy freezing my butt off standing around in Old Father Thames. As I walked out the third roll, I felt a rather odd sensation in my right foot. Something was off, so I walked back up onto the foreshore. It felt like the ball of my foot was flapping about as if it had somehow been disconnected from the rest of my foot. Stepping out of the water, I saw that my foot was bleeding like a stuck pig. I had apparently trodden on a large piece of broken glass that had sliced right through my plimsolls and straight into my foot. Aghast, my boss rapidly wrangled the floor section we'd been cleaning into the van, and we head off for the nearest A&E, accident and emergency. 10 minutes after, I'm sat on the chair in a very busy waiting room, still in my wetsuit with a sweatshirt tightly wrapped around my foot while the boss checks me in. I'm still losing blood like it's going out of fashion. I've obviously sliced into some major blood vessels, and there's a pool of blood accumulating on the floor, despite the temporary bandage. As you might imagine, I'm also starting to feel rather faint and very out of sorts. It was at this juncture that the Karen manifested in all her glory. Sat almost opposite was, as I've subsequently discovered, a stereotypical Karen sporting a coiffure of indeterminate provenance and an expression like she consumed enough lemons to populate the glasses of every single gin and tonic drinker in the country. Sat with her was a glum-looking 9-year-old. Excuse me, would you mind not bleeding all over the floor in front of my son? It's making him feel sick. Oh my god. I was wondering where this was going. Seriously, despite my weakened state, I felt affronted. What would you like me to do? Go and find a needle and thread and sew it up myself? Remarkably, the lemon-sucking expression intensified. Why don't you sit somewhere else? It was at this point that decorum departed for sunnier climes. I gave her both barrels at close range and at high volume. Why don't you F off and sit somewhere else if it bothers you so much? You can clearly see that walking around with a severely gashed foot is going to be something of a problem for me. You, on the other hand, seem to be perfectly capable of getting up off your fat ass with minimal effort. If you're that bothered, F off somewhere else. If looks could kill, I would have died on the spot. But I continue to stare her down. At this point, my boss comes back from checking me in. He parks his 6'2" frame in front of her and in a low but menacing voice starts to curse her out in Russian. Karen goes white and grabbing her son's hand scurries off to the other side of the waiting room. Shortly thereafter, I get called into a consulting room and 13 stitches and a pint of O+ later, I'm sent home to recuperate. Boss took me home and on the way back I asked him what he said to Karen. My mother's recipe for borscht. Karen's son was in for the removal of a tiny wood splinter in his pinky. Oh my god, I can't believe that. Hey, can you please stop bleeding? That's hilarious, but like confusingly infuriating. Like, what do you mean, can they stop bleeding? Yeah, wow, that was so fun to read. The next one is called A Brief Encounter with a Karen at the IKEA restaurant. So, today my husband took me shopping at IKEA for some random items we needed, but we were unable to get due to previous public gatherings restrictions. We decided to make a day out of it and grab lunch at the IKEA restaurant while we were at it. Now, for clarification, due to COVID, there are certain rules and procedures to be followed in IKEA, meaning that now you stand in queue, first to get your table number, then to move forward to order and go take your designated seat, and one of the servers wheels your food to you. All fine and dandy, we stand in line to get our table number, though the queue is kind of long, and we're considering scrapping this idea and eating elsewhere. Right next to the window is a giant menu with items offered in the IKEA restaurant, the usual meatballs, salmon, salad, and the like. In front of us stands a Karen with a kid in a stroller, which looked to be around 4 years old. Karen stares at the menu and looks over at the restaurant employee handing out table numbers. Karen, do you have any chicken McNuggets? Silence. The employee is staring at her. We're staring at her. God and evolution are arguing in the background about whose fault this brain fart is, given that they are usually not served here at all, and the giant picture menu is quite clear on that subject. Not to mention that McNuggets are kind of a different restaurant chain's gig. Employee, no, we don't, sorry. Karen, you don't? What kind of a kid-unfriendly restaurant is this? My child doesn't want to eat anything on your menu. Employee, I'm sorry, madam. The menu you see to your left is all that's offered. Karen huffs, grabs the table number and moves forward. The employee glances over at us, gives us the table number and goes, oh, pardon me, madam is pregnant. You don't wait. Please just step here to the side and follow my colleague. He'll take you to the register so you can order. Karen's head whips around so fast I thought it might fall off. Her face is a picture of shock at unjust treatment. She glares at my 8-month pregnant belly and then at the employee and screeches, I have a child as well. The employee, now with another one in tow, stares at her blankly and goes, yes, but your madam here is pregnant. I can sense him struggling not to say, well, you pushed yours out a while ago, didn't you? As we leave with the other server, I can still hear her in the background, arguing that she has a child and should be given the same treatment as a pregnant woman, while the IKEA employee is still patiently trying to explain to her that it's company policy that disabled people and pregnant women have the right to cut queue, and unless she or her son is disabled, or she herself is pregnant, she can't cut in. 20 minutes later, we're done with our food and we stand up to leave. I spot Karen still in queue, third in line from the register, glaring at us. I resist the urge to wave and just pat my belly happily, and then waddle away with my husband. I have no doubts that IKEA is getting a bad review on Yelp or something, due to not serving McNuggets and not letting her entitled self cut in line, even though she played the child card fairly early on. Oh my god, that's so annoying. I can't even imagine a more frustrating situation. That's so frustrating. Karen accused me of stealing my own car, tricked a dumb cop into arresting me, and now my car's a wreck because he gave her the keys. I don't really care who believes this, but here's my story. I live in one of those middle of nowhere desert towns where almost everybody knows almost everybody, and it's hot as hell, but dirt cheap to buy a home or land in, and it's not uncommon for old cars to last out here as they almost never rust, and people keep fixing them. After high school, I worked my ass off at a local job to get my own place. I ended up buying a small plot of land with a trailer on it off a local guy that decided he was going to move to Texas, and the guy also sold me his Ford Escort prior to that. It was an okay first car, got me around well enough. I still have it too. 10 years have gone by since then, and for a while I spent a lot of my time tinkering with an old 87 Monte Carlo that I bought super cheap, as it didn't have an engine or transmission. I love that car, as an older cousin of mine had one when I was a kid, and I always wanted one of my own. I spent 2 years fixing up the one I got with some help from friends, and I finished it in 2019. Since the engine was missing, I dropped in a junkyard Chevy 305 V8, and that was connected to a rebuilt 4-speed automatic transmission that had low miles from a totaled car. Then I painted it myself inside a friend's garage with a Harbor Freight sprayer and some GM black single-stage gloss paint, and buffed it to a shine, and I finished it up with some gold Monte Carlo decals and some classic moon rims that I bought from a local junkyard and polished up. I also partially redid the interior by replacing the seats and put in a new custom steering wheel. I'm not really a mechanic, but my friends all helped me, and online how-to videos on my smartphone really helped as well. The car was fun to drive and it looked good, and I kept it in good order. That is until this mess went down. Now, I didn't really trust some of the local law enforcement out here before, and this gave me even more reason not to. A lot of the cops around here are barely qualified for the job. They're practically hired with a handshake and just told to play Doom for training. Granted though, many of them are really nice. The sheriff is even kind of a friend of mine, but he's really one of the only competent ones there. Most of the rest don't even really do their jobs well, especially whenever a new one gets hired on. Like a guy that went out of his way to move to my my town just to get to be a cop. In this case, he was the nephew of the sheriff. He even brought his own Crown Vic with a loudspeaker to drive around town in. Let's call this guy NC for nephew cop, since he was the sheriff's nephew. Nephew cop and I didn't know each other personally yet, but I was aware of him. He was dumb as a rock and high on his own ego. He was like Barney Fife and John Cena had an illegitimate son, because he was a tall, strong-looking man that was always giving people creepy looks, and he patrolled on foot up and down Main Street with a clipboard in hand and a big grin on his face. He also liked to publicly flex his muscles in front of people. One Saturday morning, I took my Monte Carlo out to meet a friend, but they ended up bailing because of a last-minute issue with their girlfriend. I thought, meh, no problem, I'll just get some fast food and then go home. I went to the local burger place and I got a meal to go, and as I was walking out of there was a lady outside looking over my car. She was bent over in a very short skirt, and not gonna lie, I enjoyed the view. People would stop here and there to ask me about my car and where I got it. I usually don't mind talking so long as they're polite, though this woman ended up anything but. She was curvy and good looking while wearing a black miniskirt. I'm guessing early to mid 30s or so, not really sure. I asked her if she liked my car. She stood up, took one look at me and snickered. I asked her what was so funny, to get an idea of what I looked like at the time. I was a skinny guy with a scraggly beard and I was wearing a faded AC/DC t-shirt with the sleeves ripped off it, along with some worn out cut off denim shorts and flip-flops. I guess she figured I was poor or something. So she was probably judging my appearance. She looked me up and down in a very obvious way and then said, "There's no way this is your car. You couldn't possibly afford something this nice." Now, I have a tendency to get sarcastic or snide when people make assumptions about me, so I said back, "Oh really, lady? The title's in my name, and these keys right here in my hand say that I'm the owner too." The Karen just glared at me as I put the keys in the lock and I began to open the door. I looked behind her and I noticed a beige 90s Volvo with a missing headlight, and it had out-of-state plates on it parked not too far from me. I put two and two together and I laughed. "Let me guess, lady, that's your car over there." She started to turn beet red. I laughed and said, "Oh, don't be ashamed. Those things aren't lookers, but they'll run forever." I figured this was over, but as I was opening my door, I suddenly felt her nails digging into my shoulder. She was screeching so loud that my ears were hurting, and before I could turn around, she kicked me between my legs from behind with a high-heeled shoe so hard that I collapsed in agony. And true to my luck, NC drove right up because it heard her screeching from down the street during his noon patrol. As soon as NC was out of his car, the Karen ran to him crying and saying that I was a carjacker that was attempting to take her new car. I wasn't looking at either of them as I was on the ground wincing in a fetal position from the pain. The next thing I heard was NC yelling, "Put your hands behind your back." And then I was pinned down by his knee on my spine and I was forcibly cuffed. I tried telling NC that I knew his uncle and I can prove I'm the real owner of the car, but he called me white trash and told me to shut up. Then he picked my keys up off the ground and actually handed them to the Karen. Then he seemed to do like a hero pose while she gave me a crap-eating grin. No matter what I said, NC wasn't listening to me because he fully believed her. And then I had to see Karen start up my car and drive off with it. My heart sank as I watched it sail down the road with her flipping me off. Then NC took me back to the sheriff's office. I'd hoped his uncle was in, but just my bad luck, he was out to lunch. So NC put me in the cell and told me to keep quiet. I was so pissed, but I knew I wasn't going to make my situation any better, so I waited. And during that time, NC kept giving me looks of contempt. At one time, he walked across the cell with a nightstick, grazing it against each bar, like he was trying to intimidate me. At least an hour went by and the sheriff finally came in through the door nursing a big gulp, but froze the second he saw me. "OP, what are you doing here?" he asked. I was about to speak when NC jumped in and said, "I caught this lowlife trying to steal a lady's car, so I hauled him in." That's when I finally got my chance to speak and said, "Yeah, only it was my car, the one you know I spent so long fixing up." NC just rolled his eyes and said not to listen to me, but the sheriff silenced him and asked me for my full story. As I tried to tell it, NC was making dismissive looks and kept repeatedly interrupting until the sheriff told him to sit down and shut up. Then when I was finally able to say everything that happened, he was furious. The sheriff laid into NC, who was cowering in a chair like a little boy, and saying that it indeed was my car, and he stupidly gave my keys to a thief that had assaulted me. NC started frantically apologizing and trying to say that he was just trying to help, but the sheriff called him an idiot that just wanted to play hero by saving a damsel in distress, and now the whole department's going to be in hot water for his unlawful arrest and physical assault against me. Then he finally let me out. I got some ice for my crutch and I got taken home. The sheriff and NC went back to the burger restaurant, but the Karen's car was no longer there. They got the CCTV footage from the camera the restaurant had looking outside. It caught everything minus the audio. The Karen came back riding piggyback with a guy on a motorcycle over half an hour from the time she left with my car. She blew him a kiss and then drove off in her Volvo. The sheriff scrambled everyone, even NC, to try and chase her down, but they couldn't find her as she'd already driven out of the county lines. Some phone calls were made to other departments to look for her, and I had to sit at home with an ice pack on my crutch all evening, waiting for news on what happened. A couple of days later, my car was found just a few miles out of town. The Karen had broken broken all of the windows with what I was assuming was the tire iron, and then put the car in neutral and let it coast down a deep rocky hill, which rolled it into the bottom ditch, which smashed the front end of it and warped the frame. It was completely totaled. I wanted to cry from the sound of metal grinding on rock as the tow truck pulled it back up. NC was there too, and he couldn't even look at me the entire time. My insurance also didn't want to cover the car, so the sheriff's office was made to pay me the value of the Monte Carlo instead, since NC let it happen, which was only about $5,000, though that was honestly close to what I had into it, since I did almost all the work by hand and the help of friends. NC also paid me another $2,000 for my trouble, and said that it was most of his savings. The Karen was caught at a motel estate over sometime later, and arrested for soliciting prostitution and drug possession. Grand theft auto was just one of the many things that she was charged with. I got on a video call just to see her in court and testify. She looked like a wreck the whole time because she knew she was screwed, and it wasn't long before she was pronounced guilty. She got 10 years behind bars without any possibility of parole. As for NC, the sheriff all but begged me not to sue him because he was his nephew, and he promised his sister he'd look out for the guy. I'm not a sue-happy person, so I let it go provided NC actually take some sort of course on how to properly do his job, and so the incident was more or less rug swept, and NC was demoted to sitting at a desk all day answering phones, and they would be docking part of his pay until every penny was paid back. He's still regulated to desk duty half of the time these days, and he still avoids me anytime I'm near him. Arguably he's a better cop now though because he's mellowed out. As for me, it took some time, but with help financially I located a replacement Monte Carlo project car, one with a clean title, and it was the same year too. I salvaged as many parts as I could from my old one, and I used it all in the build. The engine and transmission was still good, and somehow so were most of the base parts, and the sheriff personally came by to help my friends and I build the new car in his downtime. It took a year, but now I've got a fresh looking Monte Carlo that looks just like my old one. You'd never know they weren't the same car. I've made sure to have better insurance this time around, and I'll be damned if I ever let a Karen near my car again. Wow, that's so fun to read, and also I feel like we've read it before. It was nearly the end of it before I even realized. I don't know if I've read it on the channel before, but I feel like I have read this before. But yeah, I don't mind reading it again. That was absolutely unbelievable. And yeah, a good way to start the episode. Post number 2 is called Karen Doesn't Think I'm Disabled Enough for the handicap spot. I'm on mobile, so I, 24 female, am in the process of finding out if I tore my left ACL or not. During this time, I was given a temporary handicap pass because I'm on crutches and I have a knee brace. This morning I drove to my MRI appointment and I saw an empty handicap spot and I parked there. I shouldn't be walking regularly, but I can at least limp around the car and grab the crutches in the passenger seat. Right before I open the door, some lady approaches me from behind and is all, Miss, you can't park there. I'm not a mean person and I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I go, I'm on crutches and I have a pass. Don't worry. This lady with her voice sharpening says, you can clearly walk and I don't see no crutches. So I open the door and I pull one out. For some context, my crutches are decorated with stickers. The lady, whom will now be known as Karen, scoffed and said, that pretty crap ain't real. That's just a decoration. Move your damn car. She pulls out her phone and I assume she's going to start filming me. I'm not confrontational by any means, but my knee was hurting, I woke up too early, and Karen was probably about to blast me on Facebook, so I responded, film and this crutch will be up your ass. I'm not sure what happened next as I turned around and hobbled off. I was so upset I forgot my other crutch in the car. Oh, that's so awful, OP. It sucks that people can be like this, and they have no reason to be acting like this. It's so frustrating, but it's also sad. Like, if they're treating you like this, they almost definitely do that to a lot of other people. Some people are just walking around being a nuisance. Yeah, sorry you had to deal with that, OP. Just a bit of a warning for the next one, guys. They do talk about a car accident in this, and it's pretty unsettling. So yeah, there'll be timestamps on the video if you want to skip it. Post number 3 is called Karen Demands We Let Her Through a Fatal Crime Scene. Okay, so I'll start by saying that this story is from about 5 years ago, and my therapist mentioned it in passing as it was something I'd spoken with her about years ago regarding my PTSD. I figured it's finally time to post this gem of a woman's story. It's around 11 PM on a Saturday night, and I'm sitting at home just getting ready to go to bed. I'm an on-call tow truck operator, and I figure I'll be going out early the next morning. Right as my head hit the pillow, my Nextel-style two-way radio chirped, and a dispatcher goes, "Hey, OP, are you still awake?" "Yeah, I'm up." "Good, we've got a one-car accident in the next town over. PD wants it expedited, so please hurry, but be safe." 10-4, I'm out the door. After a roughly 20-minute drive, I'm headed out of this small town looking for the accident, and I see it. The coroner and forensics vans were parked in the road, amongst a dozen squad cars. A typical one-car accident has one officer sitting with it for paperwork reasons, with the tow operator. Obviously, I know things just got a lot darker than I'd originally been told. Sparing the gory details, what had happened was 6 kids between 17 and 20 had been in an SUV while driving drunk, and only the driver had a seatbelt on. The vehicle swerved off the road and the driver went to correct. However, 1, he overcorrected, and number 2, the road on that side had about an 8-inch lip, which which made it extremely rough of a transition to pull a vehicle back onto the road. As it came back on the road, the driver fishtailed, trying to correct back in the other direction and again overcorrecting. This sent the vehicle rolling down the road in and out of the 4-foot drainage ditch next to the road. All 5 passengers were ejected and they died on the scene. One of the passengers was trapped under the SUV that came to a rest in the ditch on its roof. The other passengers were strewn across the road with sheets over them. I set up my Peterbilt rollback at a 70-degree angle across the 2-lane road, and I start to work with forensics and the coroner to remove the vehicle from the ditch, as well as to preserve as much evidence as possible. No sooner than I get this winch tight on my truck do I hear a frantic beeping of a car horn. I turn around and directly behind me is a woman who looks to be in her early 40s, who's now just holding the horn down, letting it blare non-stop as she's yelling out of her window. Oh God. I ignore her and I turn around to go back to this delicate job I'm in the middle of, wondering how Karen had got past the police roadblock that was roughly a third of a mile up the road at the nearest intersection to keep traffic out of the area. As I'm slowly maneuvering this 8,000-pound vehicle from the roof onto its side, the honking stops. Maybe 8 seconds later, I feel a hand grab my shoulder and attempt to spin me around. I'm 6'3", 280 pounds, so there's absolutely no way this 40-something, 5-ish, 160-pound woman is achieving this goal. I let out a sigh as I stopped winching on the vehicle and I looked at the sky with my eyes asking every god I can for the strength to not headbutt this biatch. I turn around and attempt to say, "Ma'am, the road is closed due to a fatal accident." Karen cutting me off. "I don't care what you have to say, just get out of my way, I'm late." Me, extremely annoyed now and talking over Karen's continued complaints. "Listen, biatch, 5 people just died here, and there's absolutely no way anybody is driving down this road for hours. I suggest turning around and driving back through the police roadblock you somehow got around now." Karen opening with that line that we've all heard 1,000 times. "Excuse me, I live right here," points back behind her vehicle, "and I have to use this road to get to where I'm going. You will move your truck now or I'm calling the police." By this time, the forensics crew had heard all the yelling over the loudness of my truck idled up, and the PTO engaged and walked over. Forensics crews don't dress like police, especially in the middle of the night on the weekends. They're dressed in plain clothes but carrying a badge on them, and they'll put on a hazmat suit if needed. None were needed on this scene yet, just gloves and such. Karen, "Which one of you is the manager? This man won't move his goddamn truck and let me through. I'm calling the police." Is actually holding the phone to the side of her head and talking to what we would later find out was 911. Forensic officer, "Ma'am, I am the police." Karen, "I don't want to hear any more goddamn excuses. Move the freaking truck now." Clapping between each word. Ugh. Right when you think they can't get any more awful, they do. Me, "You dumb biatch, do your 2 remaining brain cells constantly compete for 3rd place?" Forensics officer, stifling a chuckle, "Ma'am, if you don't get in your car and leave this crime scene, you will be arrested." Just as the FO finished saying this, a squad car came screaming down the road from the same direction Karen came from and stopped behind her vehicle. The officer hopped out of his car and the very first words he said were Karen's Miranda rights. Karen screamed, kicked and swore that everybody else should be arrested and even tried to spit on me, which caused her to catch a tampering with evidence charge as we're on an active crime scene. By the time it was all done, her other charges were obstruction, assault on an officer, misuse of 911, and interfering with an investigation. She took a deal that netted her 18 weekends in the county jail. However, I did tow her car as well. Monday morning I met her husband and he couldn't have been more embarrassed as he apologized over and over as he paid me and then inspected the vehicle and signed off that we didn't damage it. The impound cost roughly $600 as it was police initiated, after hours and storage. Charges were $150 impound, $50 after hours, $52 a day storage, and $5 a mile each direction from our office. Our office was roughly 15 to 17 miles away. Oh, that was so awful. I thought I'd read about the worst Karens, but this one was so much worse than the stuff that we've read. Yeah, like this comment says, "As a police dispatcher who deals with some degree of a Karen every single day, I'd like for you to know you are my hero. Also, my heart is with you for the struggles that come from situations like this. Keep taking care of yourself." And OP said, "The sheer lack of awareness and main character syndrome that woman displayed still baffles me. I'm doing well with the PTSD from the many accidents of this caliber that I've worked with, but I still can't wrap my head around somebody like this. Thank you for your kind words." Yeah, that was revolting, and more revolting than the stuff that we usually read. Ugh. Once again, I'm sorry you had to deal with that, OP. Post number 4 is called "Entitled Karen Pushes a Teenage Girl Trying to Do Her Job." This happened at work today. I work part-time at a popular clothing store in my country. The customers are usually entitled women who come and spend their husband's money, and their whole personality is that they're rich. It's a sort of type of women here. They have those huge plumped up lips from fillers, often a dead giveaway of how they act, and they're so used to people kissing their butts that whenever somebody doesn't, they make a scene. Me and a group of girls were working at the changing rooms, and a procedure we have there is to ask people how many things they're bringing in, and to ask the them to press their bag onto a sensor to detect if they have something from the store in their bags. This woman with a biatchy attitude and the already mentioned huge lips just walks by the station and nonchalantly starts heading for the changing rooms. We've all been sick of entitled people the whole day, so one of the girls shouts out to her and the conversation goes as follows. Girl, excuse me ma'am, how many things do you have on you? Entitled Karen, come and count them, in a rude tone. Girl, who is already super annoyed. Alright, I will. We're all a little flabbergasted by this already, and the girl starts to follow the woman. A few seconds later, the girl comes back all riled up and talks into the walkie-talkie. Can the manager and security guard come to the women's changing room right away? We all stare at her shocked and ask her what happened. She tells us that she came up to her changing room where the woman had already placed her things in, and she was about to head in. The woman pushed her and started cursing around. She told her she would be calling security, and the woman replied that she will call the manager. The girl answered that there's no need because she'll be calling her. In short, the manager shows up and she tells us that the woman is a friend of the director of the entire store. Mind you, this place is huge and it brings in a lot of money, and that we should let it go as to not cause any problems. We were told that whenever she comes in, we're supposed to ignore the protocol and just let her pass with no questions asked. How ridiculous. In the end, the girl was told to go take a walk and come back in 15 minutes so the woman will finish and leave. No satisfying resolution, but there was nothing we could have done. Yeah, like the top comment says. What the absolute F? Yeah, what? That's so bad. Like, oh no, just ignore it. Just ignore them being a tantrum throwing entitled child. That's a fully grown adult that's acting like this. Embarrassing. Yeah, what? Yeah, let's read one more, guys. Post number 5 is called French Karen is upset that I speak English in England. Accidentally posted this in Entitled Parents, so I'm posting it here instead. Long time lurker, first time poster. I work at a company that has over 300 sites globally. I work in the only plant in the UK. We have 22 people working here. I was asked to join a call with our other European sites, as I also speak German fluently and can understand and speak Italian to a level about the industry I work in. So we have this call and we have English, me, Greek, Turkish, Romanian, Italian, German, Spanish and French on the meeting. Everyone's plant has management and can all speak English. Italian and German is broken English, hence why it's easier for me to be on it and translate if they struggle understanding anything. So we go about the meeting and German starts talking to me in German. I'm translating and it's going well. We all know each other well, as we often visit each other's plants. Apart from France, they have a new woman, Karen, who keeps on trying to be the center of attention. She's been speaking fluent English all through the call so far. I'm translating for German and Italian. It's going well. Until Karen starts speaking French. I told her I don't know French. It's already confusing enough with 3 languages. The conversation goes as follows. Karen, what do you mean? You're the translator? Me, no, I'm a chemist. I know German fluently and Italian to a level that it's relevant to this call. Karen, well, why are you making me speak a second language but learning everybody else's? Me, I'm doing the company a favor, otherwise they'd have to get a translator. Karen, oh, I get it. It's because I'm new and a woman. Me, I'm also a woman. No, I just never learnt French. Karen, oh, so it's a race thing now? Me, you speak English. You don't need to be translated or it to be all about you. Karen hung up. The next day reported me to HR for racism and bullying. I don't think she realized that the call was recorded, so I sent a copy to HR. Unfortunately, at my company, you have a 6-month probation. This happened at 3 months of her being here, and throwing out stupid accusations like this means you're probably not gonna make it. Yeah, well, being an a-hole for no reason. We read about that a lot, don't we, guys? If you want a refund, you have to buy the product first. Man, oh man, I think this happened long enough ago that I can get away with telling it now. Just a little bit of a warning, this is pretty long. There will be a TLDR at the end of the post. For those of you who don't wish to read the entire thing, that's not us. Essential backstory, I work at a computer store. At the time of this story, I worked at the returns desk. It would often function as a customer service desk, but technically there is no customer service desk, as the members of staff are expected to be able to help with every aspect of their respective department. Everyone's customer service. Also know that I am allowed to be very flexible with our return policy, as long as it's within reason. Also, I hate working the returns desk. This day was like any average retail day. The store I work at is run relatively well, so the day passes by smooth. That is until about an hour before my shift ended, when a teenager comes up to my desk, hoping to return some computer parts. This includes RAM, a motherboard, and a CPU. He doesn't have the receipts, however, receipts are not required as long as I can find the transactions in my POS, point of sale system. Thankfully, he has an account and I am able to find the RAM and the motherboard. The RAM them I was able to give him a refund on, no issue. However, the motherboard was about 50 days old. Our return policy is 30 days, but I was feeling nice. He's a kid after all, and I remember how confusing I found the world when I was his age, which was not that long ago, but it feels like a lifetime. I told him I couldn't give him his money back, but he could exchange it for a new one or get a gift card, which was standard practice for returns outside of 30 days, but within 60. Well, I can't have a gift card, my dad will get mad. Me? Okay, but I can't give you money back. You're well over the return period, so it's either a gift card or an exchange. Teen? I guess I'll get a new motherboard then. Me? Which one do you want? Teen? The same one, I guess. At this point, I realized that I'd forgotten why he wanted to return it. It wasn't required anymore, as any open product at this point would be sent back to the distributor for inspection anyway. Turns out his computer wasn't working after he put all of it together, so he needed new stuff. Teen? Yeah, I don't know why it's not working. Me? Okay, did you want to go look around for some other stuff? Or do you want me to call a salesman over to grab you another board? Teen? Just give me a new one. Now, are you going to refund me for the CPU? I hadn't gotten to the CPU yet, as I was still pretty new to returns, and I was doing them one at a time to make sure I didn't mess up. Now, of course, I have to be careful about returns, making sure the item is the correct one and all that, but I have to be extra careful with CPU returns, so I opened it up to do my checks, and I instantly realized why this customer's computer wasn't working. For those not in the know, the CPU is a small square chip that essentially acts as a computer's brain. They're a super important and extremely fragile piece of equipment. Depending on the brand of CPU, there may or may not be pins on the bottom, and they're essential for both the functionality of the CPU and the rest of the computer. They're extremely easy to bend or break. However, it's also extremely easy to not bend or break them, so there isn't really a good reason for somebody to damage a CPU. This kid's CPU looked like he took a hammer to it. Me? Well, this is why your computer isn't working. Teen? What? Me? The pins are smashed. Nothing in the computer can even work if you have damage like this. Teen? Oh, well, can I return it? I didn't want to say anything yet because I felt bad for the kid, but we were unlikely to take it back because of the damage, and that he bought it over 30 days ago, so I had yet to find the receipt for the CPU. It was a pretty expensive CPU, so I was hoping that management would make an exception and let him exchange it, so I kept looking for his receipt for the CPU. He didn't have a lot of transactions, so I figured I could brute force it and go through them one at a time, and yet I couldn't find it. It wasn't on any of his receipts. Me? I'm not finding the CPU under your account. Is there another name it could be under? Teen? We could try my dad's. His name is this. I look up his name and no account shows up. Me? There's no account under your father's name. Oh, he doesn't have an account. I'm the only one who shops here. It's at this point I realized that I'm dealing with a teenager who's slightly stupider than your average teenager. However, I keep my composure and I keep moving forward. I try not to treat people differently based on their intelligence. In a last-ditch effort, I check the transactions based on the CPU serial number. We have to manually attach transactions to accounts, and sometimes the cashiers neglect to do that for any number of reasons. However, when I scanned the serial number, nothing popped up. That was weird. Me? Did you buy this at this location or at a different store? Teen? Different location? I admit, I should have asked that sooner so I could have pulled up the remote search window from the get-go. However, when I pulled it up, it showed that he'd never made any purchase at any of our other locations. He'd only ever shopped at my store's location, me thinking that it could be a glitch in my POS and hoping that I could access the more complete central server database. Which computer store location did you buy this one from? Teen? Oh, I didn't buy this from a computer store. I bought it from Amazon. I just sort of looked at him silently. I didn't know how I got to this point. Why did he think that we would take his CPU that he bought from Amazon? So I asked, why are you trying to get a refund for a product you didn't even buy from here? Teen? What do you mean? Me? You didn't give us money for this. You gave it to Amazon. Therefore, we don't have money to give back to you. That's at Amazon. Teen? So I want my money back. Me? Your money isn't here. Your money's at Amazon. If you want your money, you need to go to Amazon. Teen? So you can't take care of it? Me? No, you did not give us money for the CPU. The CPU has no monetary value here, and I can't give anything back to you. Teen? Can I exchange it? Me? I'm afraid not. We don't do trade-ins. I assumed he was talking about a trade-in. Teen? No, I want to exchange it. Internally, I'm banging my head against a wall. How could a teenager not understand the concept that a return can only go back to where he originally bought it from? Me? In order to do an exchange, you would have needed to buy this product here or at one of our other locations, but you didn't. You bought it at Amazon. There's nothing more I can do for you. You need to send this back to Amazon. Teen? So you're not going to help me? Me? No. At this point, he leaves, and I'm relieved that he eventually understood. Or so I thought, because not even a minute later, he comes back with my manager. Teen? He wouldn't let me return this and was mean to me. I want a refund. Manager? I'm sorry about that, sir. Do you have your receipt? Teen? No, but I bought it last month from Amazon. I kid you not. That's what he said. Manager? Why would I give you money for something that you didn't even buy from us? Teen? Are you saying you won't give me a refund? Manager? There is no refund to give, and there's nothing I can do for you. The teen then storms off to a salesman and says to them, they were mean to me. They called me names, and they won't give me a refund for my item. Salesman? That's not my department. It's their final decision when it comes to refunds. refunds. The teen then storms off and tries this routine over and over again, each time getting more and more upset over the next 20 minutes until he's ugly crying to the store's general manager about how horrible everybody was to him and how we won't give him a refund for his CPU. The general manager then asked him to wait and then came to me. General manager, why won't you give him a refund for his CPU? At this point, I really don't care how old it is. Me, he didn't buy it from here. He bought it from Amazon. Ask him. The general manager did just that. When he heard that the teen did in fact buy the CPU from Amazon, the general manager essentially asked him why he thought that we'd take it and give him a refund. The teen said that somebody in the repairs department said that we'd take care of him. This turned out to be a misunderstanding or a lie, as the technician was only saying that I was the one who handled the items, not that I'd definitely for sure give the kid a refund. Eventually the teen left, tears in his eyes, without a refund. He later left me a survey review that I made fun of him, threw his items on the floor and refused to give him a refund. We have cameras. My general manager had that review dismissed. It's insanely annoying to get a survey review dismissed, so it shows just how ridiculous the general manager thought the situation was. Wow, that's so frustrating. Yeah, but aren't you going to give me a refund? And they ask everybody in the shop the exact same thing. No, you're not going to get a refund actually. Yeah, you did a good job, OP, like this comment says. My head would be banging into a wall. You handled the situation well. Yeah, that was annoying enough to read about, let alone being in the situation. The next one is called Where Are the Heelys? I used to work at a fairly large sporting goods store. This was a while ago, back when Heelys was still a thing. Are they still a thing? Our store received a promotional display with a large 3-foot sign and red lettering that said Heelys. They also put a large spinning wheel on it too. It was pretty cool. Kids loved it. However, for some reason this sign was absolutely invisible. Like somehow the company had put on special paint that made it invisible to the eyes of adults. Must be the same paint they used to make out of order signs. Anyway, here's the story. Where are your Heelys? A woman demands as she approaches me in the shoe department. I've been through this whole store and I can't find them. I was told they're here. Yes, ma'am. I'll take you to them. I bring her to the display and I think it's a little bit obvious because of the large sign, but I put my hand on the display for a little bit extra obviousness and turn around and say, here you go, ma'am. The woman continued to stare at me, eyes locked onto me like a hawk, so I started to gesture to the large sign that said Heelys. She still doesn't see it. I even tried to do a little Vanna White gesture towards the sign and display. Still nothing. By this point, I'm gesturing with two different hands towards the sign, display, and individual shoes on the display. Nope, she just stared at me like I was a mime acting out the old invisible box routine. They're right here, ma'am. Where? She asked, throwing up her arms and finally drawing her eyes away from me, looking 10 feet above my head. Where are the Heelys? She practically yells to the heavens. I turn my head slowly to see where she's looking. I start to think this must be some kind of practical joke. Standing in the presence of something as dense as a neutron star is causing a violent reaction in my brain, and I have my first aneurysm. My co-worker, who was watching the entire scene play out, finally manages to put on a straight face and come to my rescue. Hi ma'am, are you looking for the Heelys? He's asking her calmly. Yeah, she says, frustrated with the service that I'd been providing her. I'm not sure if we have some in stock right now, but if you follow me, I'm sure that we can find some. He tells her, leading her away from the display. He got her to do a half circuit around the store before returning back to the same place in front of the Heelys display where the whole incident took place. I'm sorry ma'am, they had the display in the power aisle earlier. It was a half-truth. It was in fact in the power aisle last month, but moved to the shoe department because people kept blocking the entire aisle, crowding around the display. I know we are expecting a new shipment soon. I would check back early next week. Oh well, thank you for your time, she tells him as he casually leans against the large obnoxious Heelys display. This guy's a magician. I bring her to what she wants. She gets mad at me. My co-worker makes her walk around the store for nothing and she's grateful for it. No problem ma'am, enjoy the rest of your day, he tells her, and we wait until she's out of earshot. He turns to me and completely loses it. For 5 minutes he can't stop laughing. He then stands in front of the Heelys display, throws up his arms and shouts to the heavens, where are the Heelys? Whenever a customer asks where the Heelys are, I just tell them right down there and look down, you can't miss it. I never went near that display if I could help it. Edit, this was a long time ago, like fresh out of high school a long time ago. I had not yet picked up the skills to effectively communicate with customers, as I'd effectively grown up getting the verbal stiff arm by the adults around me when asking vague questions. So I'd grown up asking specific questions to get specifically what I wanted and assumed that adults were expected the same as well. So retail was a big welcome to the real world for me. So what was the explanation here? They just couldn't see? What the hell? Oh, this is so frustrating to read. The top comment says, I noticed early on that pointing doesn't work. People would ask if I had ice cream and I'd direct them to the sign right next to me with all the ice cream novelties pictured. Invariably, they'd look across the room and even start walking in that direction. I would even say, on this sign at the end of my hand, and they still wouldn't look. I got totally fed up with trying to point out things on the wall map, and I found that a laser pointer works wonders. Their eyes follow it despite their desire not to. Wow, how embarrassing is that? You gotta to treat people like they're cats. Yeah, the comment under it, Karen's vision is based on movement, like the T-Rex. Yeah, apparently. The next one is called Lady Attempted to Spit on Me. A few months ago, around the end of November, beginning of December, a woman came into the girls' clothing shop I worked at. Now, the store I worked at recently closed due to being bought out. A lot of people were mad about that, yelling at the employees and demanding an explanation. I wasn't a manager or anything, so I didn't really know much, just what I was told. So all I knew was that any purchases made after November 12th were final sale. No returns or exchanges. The registers are also set up where we have signs saying that all sales are final, and we have plexiglass between the cashier and the customer. Oh yeah, by the way, this story is from when COVID first hit. A lady came into the store and she looked pretty put together and wealthy. She was wearing form-fitting jeans, a sweater, and had nice makeup on. In my area, we require masks or face shields, so she had a face shield on. It comes into play later. She also had two girls with her, probably 9 and 5. Both girls were also nicely dressed. She walked around for a bit before finally choosing a set of PJs. She walked up to my register and paid for her things, with me telling her 2 times verbally that all sales were final. We tell them all sales are final before they pay, and again when we mark their receipt final sale. She acknowledged me and then paid and went to walk out of the store. On her way out, she stopped and looked at the PJs again. She seemed to find another set that she liked, so she walked back up to the register. I took her at my register, assuming that she wanted to buy the other set, but she slammed the bag of purchased PJs and the other set on the counter and said, "I want to exchange these." I looked at her and said, "I'm sorry ma'am, but all sales are final, so I'm unable to do that." She didn't like that answer and started saying, "I didn't even leave the store. I just bought these, do it." I explained to her again that I'm unable to do that. We didn't even have the option on the register anymore. She got more and more visibly aggravated with me. She kept demanding that I exchange the items, using so many different excuses like I just bought them, they're the same price, I didn't even leave, you didn't tell me it's final sale, etc. Keep in mind, there are signs all over the store saying final sale, and I told her 2 different times. I kept telling her over and over that I couldn't exchange them, but I would be happy to ring it up at a separate purchase for her. She wasn't having it. She eventually moved her face shield up and spit in my direction. Ugh. The spit landed on the plexiglass and not on me, but at that point I wasn't taking it anymore. I'm not sure if she knew the plexiglass was there or not, but either way I was done. I called my manager over and I calmly explained the situation to her before stepping back. Now, my manager is a very mama bear type. If somebody messes with her employee, she doesn't take it. She took one look at the customer and said, "You have 5 seconds to leave the store or I'm calling security to come in here and drag you out." The customer was taken aback a bit, but eventually grabbed the PJ she purchased and stormed out. Her daughters were looking scared and embarrassed of their mum the whole time. The store shut shortly after, so I'm not sure if anything ever came of it, but let's just say I'm glad I don't work retail anymore. Ew. I can't believe that. Spitting on somebody is the most scumbag thing to do ever. Like, how gross. What sort of a person spits on somebody? Yeah, like the top comment says, as somebody who was recently spat on by a customer, I'm glad your manager was quick to have your back. I'd almost rather they'd punch me than spit on me, especially when it was during a global pandemic. Bloody feral behavior. Yeah, bloody feral behavior is right. Like, oh, you didn't even tell me that it was a final sale, and then gets upset and spits on them. And it said at the beginning of the post that they were dressed as if they were like, what, wealthy or classy or something? Yeah, there's nothing classy about spitting on somebody. Sorry you had to deal with this person, OP. The next one is called, "But I need formula for my baby." Are you sure? I've worked in a supermarket for 10 years. You get your share of Karens and the only thing you can do is smile politely. But what I even hated more after an 8-hour shift and having to close up the supermarket were the customers who came in 5 to 10 minutes before closing and just do their shopping like nobody wants to go home. There was a time that I was scheduled every Friday closing shift and pretty much every Saturday closing shift. The store shut at 8. We weren't open on Sundays then. Also on Saturday we had to take out all of the cash drawers and manually count all the money. We could start doing this when all the customers had left and the front and the back doors were locked. So customers coming in 5 to 10 minutes before closing time and taking their sweet time to shop were hated with a passion. My shop had a procedure. We would barricade our entrance and turn our front door on only opening when people wanted to leave at about 5 minutes before closing. We would remind customers at 1:45, 10 to, and 5 to closing time that the store was going to close and to please go and pay for their groceries. Normally we had very few incidents. This one, however, is burned in my memory. C, colleague, FM, Formula Man. It was a Saturday. As head of the cashiers for that night, I had the honor to make or break the day of our beloved customers. I had to deal with my fair share of Karens, male and female, and I just wanted to go home, so I followed the procedure. I asked one of my fellow money handlers to set the front door and to stay there to handle any customer. At 2 minutes before closing time, a man comes running to the door. My colleague asks what he needs and reminds him that the store is going to close and he won't have much time. He says he just needs formula. Since I was busy with a customer, she let him in. Guy gets a basket and goes into the shop. Since he said he needed formula, we thought he'd be in and out like Roadrunner. No, because FM didn't need formula. At 8:05, FM is seen at the cheese section. 8:15 at our wine section. What the hell does he need that for? What kind of baby does he have? Several of my colleagues have gone to this man to get him to the counter. He scoffs and huffs and says he's a paying customer. My fellow money handler was the last one to go to him, and that's when he went too far. He yelled at her, cussing at her and making a high school student cry. Now I'm pissed, so I do what I always do in these situations. I take off my store shirt, pull out a neat jacket I keep in case of emergencies, and put it on. You see, when you have the store outfit on, you're often seen as a lesser being. But behold, I change my outfit and suddenly I look like management, and my word is all powerful. The real manager sees this happening, pops out a huge grin, and goes to the back and watches from the security cameras. So I don the magical outfit and I go to FM. I tell him in no uncertain terms that the store has been closed for 15 minutes and he's been asked multiple times to go and pay for his things. He starts to huff and puff himself up like the big bad wolf. I'm a 5'2" woman and people think they can intimidate me. I told him he was only allowed entrance since he said he needed formula, so I gave him a choice. He could go now and pay for the things in his basket, or I'd take the basket from him, grab the formula he claimed to need so much, and he could pay for that. He could choose not to do either, and in that case security would love to make his acquaintance. Either way, he would leave now. He tried, oh boy, he tried to threaten and intimidate me. He failed. He left with his cheese and wine and many threats to call corporate. The next week he came back again. This time he encounters me at the door. What did he need? Formula. So I brought him to our service desk, went inside and brought out a single pack of every kind of formula we had. Asked him which one he needed. He didn't say a word and then left. Don't mess with our closing times. Yeah, that's so annoying, and I bet a lot of people do stuff like this. Like, oh, I know they're shutting, but it's okay. I'm a customer. I can do whatever I want. I feel like if you worked at a place like that, you'd see stuff like this nearly every day. The top comment says, I hate the customers who think they have all the time in the world to shop. If only they step into the store with minutes to spare. No, if you come in at 21:55, you have 5 minutes. If you come in at 21:59, you have 1. The total disregard for the employee's time is disgusting. Excuse me for wanting to go home and not having to wait an extra hour for my bus in the freezing rain because you desperately needed an assortment of cheeses. Yeah, I can't even imagine how frustrating this would be. The next one is called No, You Can't Have a $3,500 Fridge for $1,800. This happened back in 2012 at a now dead big box chain that anchored malls. The company was in decline, but it was still the largest retailer in large home appliances. Our store was in a more affluent area, and out of all the stores I worked in, this one had the most entitled customers. I was a commission salesperson, but I was senior enough that I had an approval card, and I would handle general customer service issues. A customer, C, and his wife, W, had bought a store brand side-by-side refrigerator for $1,800. It arrives and unfortunately it's a lemon. The compressor won't engage at all. Normally in these cases the delivery team would automatically set up next day delivery for a working one. Nope, the customers refuse. Store brand has insulted their very existence. They'll never buy store brand again. They come back to the store and they tell their tragic tale. Their lives have been turned absolutely upside down by this horrible tragedy. They've picked out a new fridge, a name brand, which retailed for $2,000. They had a friend recommend it to them, and all the reviews and industry ratings look great. But here's the catch. It's the exact same fridge. Name brand makes the store brand side-by-sides, and this happened to be the exact twin model. I try to avoid taking a $200 hit. Me, sure, we could do that exchange, but I want to make sure you're aware that name brand actually makes our store brand side-by-sides. They have the exact same compressor. You'd save $200 if you kept the store brand, and you'd still end up with the same fridge. Customer, I know that. I don't care. I'm never having another store brand in my home ever again, and we're not paying that $200. It's not our fault that you sent us a faulty product. Now we have to wait, and frankly, it's insulting that you'd even imply I should pay the difference. I know the name brand often goes on sale for $1,800, so I am safe to give it for the same price, as I'm double checking that I have the margin to make the discount. I noticed something. It's back ordered. It'll be over 2 weeks before the name brand can even deliver. Me, while normally you would need to pay the difference, I understand how upsetting this is. For your inconvenience, I can offer an exchange. I did notice though that the name brand is currently out of stock in this model, so it will be another week before we can deliver. Does that work for you? You would have think that I'd kick their bloody dog or something. The wife is gasping and covers her mouth. Customer turns an interesting shade of red. Customer, that is outrageous. That will absolutely not work. You expect us to live without a fridge for a week? I will point out now that they still had their old fridge and it was in working condition. Sorry, but I really don't have a way to get one faster. The manufacturer doesn't have any at all until the next batch are ready. Wife, but customer name, we need it now. Customer, do you see that? My wife is about to cry. We need to find another solution. Me, well, we do have more fridges available across multiple brands. I'd be happy to show you other options in the same range. This is where I think they were trying to rip us off. They immediately go for other brands' top of the line French door fridges. It's not even the same category. This thing is on sale for $3,500. brand. Customer, I think this one got good reviews. It in fact had some of the best reviews. Is it available? Me, it does look like it is. We're still early enough I could have it delivered tomorrow. The difference comes to $1,700. Did you want to put that on your store card? The wife's jaw drops to the floor. Wife, what do you mean the difference? Customer, you said you'd do an even exchange. Oh my god, these people are so annoying. Me, well yeah, on the name brand side by side, this is a completely different brand and it's not even the same type of fridge. I can't do an even exchange, but we will waive the 15% restocking fee and refund the delivery fee for the trouble. Customer, I want a manager now. I call the department manager who's equally confused at the demand. He offers to take off the same $200 that we would have for the name brand. Of course, that's rejected with prejudice. He takes it up to 15%. That's $525. But no, they demand an even exchange. He's now at the point that he has to flat out refuse. Manager, that's not something I can do. You can get the store brand tomorrow. You can wait a week for the name brand, or you can get the other brand tomorrow after paying the $11.75 difference. What works best for you? The wife with tears in her eyes. You, this is bait and switch. Bait and switch. She literally screamed this next bit to the point it echoed in the mall entrance. Bait and switch. As she did this, the manager was calmly doing something on his tablet. I'll never forget this. Once she's done screaming, he hands her the tablet with a dictionary definition of bait and switch. Manager, ma'am, you seem confused. A bait and switch would be us advertising one product that isn't actually available for us to sell and then trying to get you to buy something else. I can get you that store brand anytime you want. Wife is visibly confused for a second, and then she shoves the tablet back into the manager's hands. She takes her phone out of her purse, hand shaking. Wife, you know what? I'm calling my lawyer. I'm gonna tell my lawyer about your bait and switch. Oh my god, what do they even think is happening here? And that was that. The manager and I look at each other. I swear he was holding back a smile. Manager, I'm sorry, but since you've decided to pursue legal channels, we can no longer assist you at the store level. I can get you the number for our corporate legal team. You need to direct any further questions to them directly. Wife, no, you're gonna talk to my lawyer right now. And manager, I can't continue this conversation. I'll notify the delivery team to cancel your order. You'll get a refund to your original card. It may take 3 to 4 business days for your provider to show the refund. Customer looking mildly concerned. Now hold on, my wife jumped the gun a little. Wife, no, I'm calling our lawyer. We're not gonna get taken advantage of. Wow, they think they're getting taken advantage of. You're trying to take advantage of the shop. Are you joking? Manager, I'm sorry, but we can't keep interacting with you. Customer, but at this point my manager and I walked away. The lady sat over in mattress apparently waiting for her lawyer to answer for a few minutes. Her lawyer mustn't have cared too much for her business because he apparently never answered. Her husband awkwardly posed small appliances before he walked back to her. He wildly gesticulated while yell whispering to her until they left. Transaction was refunded and I never saw them again. Remember this, my fellow retail travelers. A customer threatening legal action is always the fastest excuse to get out of any annoying situation. Oh, that's so wild. They thought you guys were taking advantage of them? That's so unbelievable. But yeah, good job to you and the manager, OP. Okay, the next one is called No Ma'am, You Can't Have That Book. In my teens and early 20s, I worked for a supermarket. Unfortunately, I had to deal with my fair share of Karens and Kevins, male entitled people. I was just talking to a friend reminiscing about the past when this story came up. At my supermarket, we occasionally sold books. Not many, but sometimes. This time it was the 5th book from the Harry Potter series. People could pre-order it until 4 weeks before release date. We had huge posters saying this, and me and my colleague even made banners covering those with text saying pre-order not possible anymore. We had separate displays for the not pre-ordered books. Oh, and they can only get the books at the service counter. We had 2 locked drawers with all the pre-orders. Only shift supervisors and managers had a key. I had the delight to work the opening shift the day of release as the supervisor. Supermarket opened at 8. I was in the store by 7:30 to get the registers ready, give the other cashiers the rundown for the morning and tell them to prepare for the absolute crap storm that was about to come. Problem started at 7:30 when the manager tried to open the doors for me, and a lot of people had already gathered and they tried getting in. Manager doesn't take crap from anybody and started to shout at the customers who were already there that they can't get their book without the registers being ready and people to man it. So we get everything ready. Manager and I get the displays with the non-pre-ordered books ready to go. 8 o'clock arrives, door opens and the herd of customers swarm in. Chaos ensued around the displays and around my service counter. People yelling and screaming that they wanted their books, wanting to pay and basically push others aside. Holy crap. Manager came and I asked if he could find things like tickets with numbers so that we could deal with this in a somewhat orderly fashion. 3 hours later, the displays were empty and about half of the pre-orders were gone. 3 hours working non-stop to get people their book fixed. Then the problem started. The displays were empty and the only books in our possession were pre-orders. Time limit on those were 3 days. Book could be picked up on X, Y, and Z dates. Afterward, they would be sold. People who didn't pre-order and couldn't buy a book as we were out of stock started to throw hissy fits because no was apparently the wrong answer. It all came to a head when I told another Karen number 452, no, and she tried to complain to my manager, who told her to cut the crap after explaining the situation to her again. This Karen then went to do her shopping. At the register, she kept on giving me dirty looks and mumbling something. Then a regular customer comes in with her son to pick up her pre-order. She gives her name and address, so I turn around, unlock the drawer, grab the book before locking the drawer again. Unfortunately for me, Karen had heard the customer asking for the book and came to take a closer look. Then Karen went full Karen mode. Conversation went like this. Karen was screeching the entire time. Why do you give her a book? You told me you were out of books. Me, this is a pre-order. We're out of the ones that weren't pre-ordered. Karen, liar that you are. I demand you give me that book now. I was here first. Me, the manager told you the same thing. This book is pre-ordered by this woman. You can't have this book unless she decides to part with it. Surprise, customer didn't do that. Karen continues to screech and curse while I complete the transaction. Then it happens. The moment I try to hand the book to the kid, Karen comes up to me in the workspace behind the service counter and she gets way into my personal space. Karen had grabbed my shoulder. Kid was fast and had the book before Karen could even grab it, and the kid booked it. Smart kid. But no, that's not all. Karen saw her prize in the hands of a kid running and started to try and open the locked drawers. When that didn't work, she proceeded to let me know she was very unhappy. She didn't touch me, but she was screaming so loud and she had me backed into a corner. In the meantime, the poor mother had called for help and I'd pressed the emergency button. She couldn't interfere physically as she had a neck brace on. Our emergency button made sure that cops were called and extra cameras were turned on that caught everything on video. Manager finally is able to wrestle Karen away from me. Cops came and she was taken away. Statements were taken and Karen was banned from the store. She did come back once, but when she was discovered by a colleague, she booked it. Fun part about it, colleague let out a scream, yelled at her and she ran, tried jumping over a chain with a sign at a closed register and fell flat on her face, got up and ran out of the store right past me holding her face. I couldn't help but say, have a nice weekend. I don't know what happened with Karen after that. Frankly, I don't care. I was 17 at the time and I never had to go to court. She got banned and I never had to deal with her again. Oh my god, that was so fun to read. Not fun to be in this situation, but it's good to read about it. A Karen demanded that I let her use my phone. This happened some time ago, but the audacity of the entire exchange has cemented the encounter into my core memories. I was working retail at the time when a woman comes up to me and asked to use my phone. At first, I didn't immediately think, Karen alert. I simply looked at her and in my best customer service voice said, I'm sorry ma'am, I can't let you use my phone, but you can use the phone at the customer service counter that's just over there, pointing to the counter 10 feet away. This is when she morphs into a Karen. So you won't let me use your phone? I'm sorry, ma'am, but no. Customer service, I start to say, but she interrupts me before I can even finish my bloody sentence. You're refusing to help me? No, ma'am, I'm not. There's a phone at customer service that you can use. When I repeatedly refused to give her my phone, she went over to the customer service desk, but she didn't even make the call that she needed that was so important that I had to surrender my phone to her. No, instead I could hear her complaining about me and see her pointing in my direction, likely telling the story of how the big meanie associate blatantly refused to help a customer in need, but the complaint didn't go her way, and nobody came over to reprimand me for my terrible customer service. Karen walked out of the store, making sure to tell me in all of her Karen displeasure, I hope one day you're stranded on the side of the road and nobody helps you. Yeah, have the day that you deserve, Karen. Yeah, wow, talk about unnecessary. Oh, what's that, somebody doing their job and having a normal day? Let me ruin it. I feel like these sorts of people think that they were born to make life harder for everybody else. I love how these episodes are a lesson on what not to do or how not to treat people. Like, instead of making our own mistakes, we get to learn through other people's mistakes. Male Karen gets mad that I'm fueling up before him. So I, 17 at the time male, was filling up my car before going to college at 7:30 a.m. and this guy pulls up behind me waiting for me to leave. He's looking at me like I insulted his mum constantly. It took 5 minutes, maybe not even that, to fill up my car's small tank. I went inside to pay and did move closer to my car. So I go sit in my car and I turn on my sat-nav. I'd been driving for only 2 months and I had a terrible sense of direction. While I was waiting for it to turn on, the Karen got out of his car screaming and pounding on my driver window telling me to move. Then he finally realized the car in front of me had left while I was filling up my car. So he went around my car giving me the middle finger the whole time and he started filling his car. I finally got my sat-nav all set up and I turned on my car and he was still staring at me, so I gave him the middle finger back and I went to drive around his car. He then jumps out in front of my car, making me slam slam onto the brakes, and he starts hitting the bonnet, the hood for you Americans reading, and then he reached over and pulled my wiper and moved to the driver's side. Thankfully, he didn't realize that my car was unlocked, and then he punched my mirror, all while shouting at me to get out and fight him. Oh my god, is this real? I revved up my car, making him think that I was going to hit him with my car. So I got out of the way and I drove to the exit, thinking that it was far enough away and safe for me to get out of my car and sort out my mirror and my wiper. It's safe to say that I was wrong, and the old Karen stomped over to me, screaming and shouting the whole time, and blocked me from getting back into my car, trying to get me to punch him. So while scared for my life because I don't know if he has a knife or not, I raised my voice above his screaming. I used to be in Army Cadets where we were taught to shout really loud without straining our voices. It scares him enough for me to be able to get back in my car and leave. And I drive home crying and shaking. I make it home and my mum asked me what happened, so I told her everything. So she took me back there in her car and asked the really nice workers if there was CCTV. There was, so we called the non-emergency line. And the nice police officer said that he'll send some officers to look at the CCTV and then we'll get back to us in a few days. About 3 or 4 days later, we get a call back saying that they've found where he lives and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said no because I don't like the thought of having to stand for hours in court for something so silly, and I decided he should be told what he did wrong and that he can't do that so nobody else has to go through what I did. It's been a year since then and I'm still scared to go to that petrol station. Edit, I would have moved out of the way, but there was nowhere to move where I wouldn't be in the way. I had to put this in because I had a bunch of replies telling me that I should have moved. That's so bloody awful. Yeah, some people are bloody awful, and I do feel like you should have pressed charges, but obviously it's understandable that you didn't. Yeah, wow, that was intense. Sorry you had to deal with this, OP. Me when my mum starts being rude to the person that's just trying to do their job. Yeah, wow, I can only imagine. I luckily don't have any family members that are Karens, but like if you had a mum that was a Karen, oh my god, you would have seen some stuff. Like, oh, mum's yelling at somebody again? No, but for real, that's terrible. And what's even more terrible is how common Karens are. They're bloody everywhere, it feels like. I witnessed my first Karen at Costco, standing in line, and the old dude in front of me had 1 poinsettias. The checker and the helper both told him that they came in 4 packs and they couldn't only sell him one. He said that there were many loose singles at the display and they could sell him one if they wanted. Checker reiterated that they could only sell them in sets of 4. He got upset and started badgering them, telling them they could do whatever they wanted and they should sell him one. This kept going back and forth, and finally the poor checker said, "I don't make the rules." He said, "Fine, take it back," and the helper grabbed it and rolled her eyes where he couldn't see. As she rushed to take it back, when it was my turn, I said loudly to both, "I just witnessed my first Karen." One laughed and the other smiled. Yeah, wow, congratulations, OP. Your first ever Karen, hell yeah. But yeah, it's so confusing to be arguing with somebody who works at a shop like this, as if they don't know what they're talking about. Like, bro, if they say they can't sell them individually, they can't sell them individually. And what the hell is the point of arguing? You know, like the people working there aren't doing this for fun. They're not lying to you. Like, oh, sorry, I was only joking. I love arguing with random customers about stuff that doesn't even matter. Of course you can buy them individually. Silly me. The next one is called I'm Getting Sick of My Auntie Karen. So in 2 days, I'm going to be selling flan at a church holiday market. Now, the way I make it, it's set in individual ramekins. It takes almost 2 hours to make one batch, so I made it clear to everybody in the household, even talking individually to set a schedule with everybody, to make sure that I'd have the kitchen to myself today so I could make the batches of flan in time for them to be able to cook and set right. I told my aunt this multiple times, and even made sure that she'd be done. She was making some pie filling for the thing that she's going to be selling and decided to start on Monday. No big deal, right? Wrong. She decided she was going to make 30 jars worth of apple pie filling in 2 days and has been hogging the kitchen the entire time. At first I thought she would at least let me have my day to make my flan, since I'd clarified multiple times exactly when I'd need the kitchen, but no. She was already working on 2 more batches of pie filling, and on top of that she said that the kitchen wouldn't be free until late tonight. But the thing is, she's been working into the night for 2 days now, so chances are I won't have any bloody time to make my flan during the day. I'm gonna have to stay up all night to make the flan because for some reason my aunt couldn't spare the time or counter space so I could do it now. She even had the audacity to complain about how I was rushing her and taking up her time when I specified that I needed the kitchen weeks in advance. I don't know if this counts as an entitled Karen, but for the sake of my rant, I'm gonna say that it does. Edit. Further context as to why I'm making the flan so soon before the market. It's because the flan takes around 8 hours to set, and it can go bad anywhere from 3 to 6 days after initially being made, so I have to make it as soon as I can possibly manage before the market, so it's sellable. Yeah, wow, what a frustrating situation, OP. And yeah, once again, that's the most annoying annoying thing about stuff like this? How bloody unnecessary it is. Like, this so easily didn't need to happen, but it still did, and it's so frustrating. And yeah, oh my god, they're definitely a Karen. Doing something like this seems completely deliberate and definitely an a-hole thing to do. Karen versus the McDonald's manager. I'm a police officer, and at the time this happened, I was assigned to a fairly busy patrol district. Me and another officer responded to a local McDonald's in reference to a white female refusing to leave and videoing the employees. I immediately commented to the other cop that it was going to be a signal 103K, which is our slang code for disturbance involving a Karen. I walk into the lobby and I see a white female holding a phone with a couple of kids standing by her. Her face immediately lights up because the nice, helpful police were there to listen to her gripe. Wrong. I walk past her towards the manager as she's saying, "Excuse me, officer." I tell her that I'm going to go speak with the 911 caller first. It was around Halloween and McDonald's was handing out candy buckets with Happy Meals. Apparently this Karen's kid had already gotten one of the candy pails in one color, but she wanted one in a different color. When the employees refused to stop what they were doing and go into the back to locate the correct color bucket for her child, she got upset. Unfortunately for her, the manager came from a store in the projects, and she was not having any of that silliness. After getting the correct background information from the manager, I asked 2 questions. What is your official title, and what do you want to happen? The manager confirmed her authority and said that she wanted a Karen-free business. I walk up to Karen, and before she could even say a word, I point at the door and say, "Get out." When Karen started to explain herself, I went from asking mode to telling mode, and with a lot more force, I commanded her to get out. Karen started crying and asked me if she could have an item number for my police report. There was no way I had any plan of writing any of this down. I told her that I write police reports for police problems, which usually means an actual crime. I followed up with the only crime I could even observe occurring was her refusal to leave the business, which I would be glad to write after arresting her. Confused, she said, "You can't arrest me in front of my children." And I gave her a look that communicated I most definitely would arrest her in front of her children. She walked out of the McDonald's and I watched her drive off, but not before the other officer found a number for her to call corporate on the manager. Wow, that's so interesting. Wait, so do you have a police code specifically for Karens? Is that what they said, to signal a 103K for a disturbance involving a Karen? That's hilarious. Yeah, so we've got a pretty serious 103K Karen disturbance, but yeah, that's so funny. They're like, "You can't do this," and you're like, "Yeah, I actually can." The next one is called "My Daughter Wants to Drop Out from University." This is not my story. The following was posted on Korean social media. I'll do my best with the translation, but note that I'm not an expert and I'll definitely have grammar errors. For context, Seoul University is SU and is considered one of the top prestige universities in the country. Title: My daughter wants to drop out of SU. I was a horrible mother. At an early age, my daughter has shown to have above average intelligence. I was so proud to have such an angel be so smart. I thought what I did was best to fully bring out her potential. It kindled my pride and ambition to push her to the limit. 15 years, that's how long I tormented her. I did some horrible things to her. I both physically and verbally abused her. Oh my god. I truly regret what I've done and I wish the memories can be erased. Last year she was admitted to SU. I shed tears of joy as I held her in my arms, thanking her and telling her how much I'm proud of her and how much I love her. She was completely void of any emotions, but I chose to ignore that. And as soon as she was admitted, she decided to take a break. I knew she needed some time after enduring all of that, so I told her okay. She didn't attend the school for about a year, doing private tutoring as her main job. This weekend she sent a long text, not to me but to my husband. She said she was dropping out. She was getting an apartment with the money that she'd been saving up and said she was going no contact with me. She added that while she might regret dropping out of such a prestigious school, she knows that it's something mum has always wanted and she was going to smash that dream. She added getting back at me was more important than living a comfortable life with a stable career. She was disgusted how I became so much nicer after she was accepted. Okay, so I don't know if this one's real, but I hope it isn't. I bloody hope all of these aren't real. The place she was getting was old and rather unsafe, so I told her we can support her in finding a better place, but she refused, saying that she doesn't want to be involved with me even financially. I can take her hating me all of her life and her going no contact, but I just want her to settle somewhere safe. What should I do? I want to tell her don't give up SU and her life just to get back at me, but I fear it's going to make things worse. My husband's a bit indifferent about this situation and told me our daughter will come back when she's ready, and because she's smart enough to take care of herself, she only speaks to him and only gives him eye contact when talking. I was always frustrated with his indifference and carefree attitude, but maybe that's why our daughter only ever spoke to him. What? Pretty sure we know why they're not speaking to you. I've been on my knees begging for forgiveness, but she only gives me cold stares. She said I'm unfamiliar to her and not worth any emotion. seconds. I don't know what to do. You can bash me all you want, but please give me advice. And OP says there were no comments supporting or comforting her. Most of the comments were about how much of a crappy mother she's been and that she deserves all of this. Whoa, okay, I was not expecting to read something like this, mainly because this is more of an entitled parent than it is a Karen. But yeah, wow, that's awful. The top comment says yet another case of overbearing narcissistic mother micromanages and controls every aspect of their child's life because they're property and not an individual, except the culture makes it so much worse. This woman knows what she did is horrible and did the whole time. Good luck to that young girl. Yeah, 100%. That one was so sad. The next one is called CEO Name Dropping Karen. So, Sunday being Christmas Eve, my store was shutting at 5:30 p.m. This has been posted everywhere for weeks. All the stores in our chain are closing at 5:30. It's now 5:30 p.m. and I have a Karen in my lane. She's in full rant mode. I can't believe you're shutting at 5:30. You're discriminating against healthcare workers. I know it's not your fault, but what are we healthcare workers supposed to do? Me? Plan ahead? It's not my fault you couldn't make up your mind about dinner before now. She literally wasn't buying anything that special. It was a choice between 2 dinners and a single serve of pecan pie. She could have shopped for her dinner on any day before now. We're open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, aside from a few days a year. And then she goes on, I'm gonna write a letter to the union. I'm gonna write a letter to corporate. I'm gonna talk to the CEO the next time I'm shopping at the Frontenac store. Me? Get out of here, lady. I don't feel good and I've got places to be tonight. I'm polite to her and I have my bagger run back that one dinner that she decided against. I finally get her out of my lane, but I made note to remember her name, so next time she comes in, I can warn my co-workers. I know she came in with a chip on her shoulder and started talking smack to my assistant store manager, only because he informed her that we were closing when she walked in. Yeah, that's so unbelievably frustrating. Karen, do you need a friend? This is what I get for going to the store instead of ordering groceries to be delivered. By the way, this is not a new post. I just have this urge to read all the Karen stories. So with the corona stuff going on, I've been dutifully staying in my apartment like a decent human being and limiting any time I spend outside. Unfortunately, this has been hell on my partner's mental health and the depression is real, so I decided, screw it. We're both food boys and he loves cookies. There's a giant the next block over. So I get dressed, I put on my sweet Disney mask, go on Etsy, the designs are wonderful, and I head out to get my partner some cookies. Now for reference, my style is hobo chic, so sweatpants, sneakers, graphic t-shirt, and a hoodie. Keep that in mind. I go into Giant and I head for the cookie aisle. I'm considering if I want Oreos or if I want to be fancy and get some Pepper Ridge Farm. These are the important questions of life. When an older woman who is very short asks me if I can grab something for her off the top shelf, of course I say yes because she was nice enough to ask. I'm a simple guy. I hand her the item and I go back to my contemplation. As I decide to get both, I hear the ha-hum. I've worked in retail and I've worked food service, so I know the sound of a wild Karen when I hear one. Me? What's up, Karen? What's up? Is that how you treat? Now I have zero in the way of spoons and even less patience. Me? Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to look at me and try that line of thinking again. Karen? Who the F? Me? Hey. Let me tell you what we're not gonna do. I need you to woo and chill. I know you know better. Karen still looks mad but doesn't say anything. Me? Now I can help you find an employee if you want, but what you will not do is yell at me. I'm only here to get some cookies. I point at my stomach. I'm a thick boy. Me? Not that I need them. Karen cracks a smile. Gotcha. Me? But at this point, I'm committed to this. I didn't choose thick life. It chose me. Karen starts to crack and laughs a little bit before all of a sudden tearing up. I'm 6 foot, 300 pounds and black. A crying Karen is a bit detrimental to my continued freedom. Me? You okay? Karen? Yeah, it's just the first time I've laughed in a while. My husband's in the hospital. Me? The virus? Karen? Yeah. Me? I'm not sure if it means much coming from some cookie guy, but I hope he recovers. Karen smiled and then walked away. While she didn't apologize for popping off, I'm glad it didn't escalate any further. Her husband's condition doesn't excuse what I'm sure would have been an awful tirade, but it does serve as a reminder that stuff is bad for everybody. Oh, we're starting the episode with a wholesome post. That's so cute, OP. That was so unexpected, but I'm so happy we're starting the episode with this. Hell yeah. The next one is called Okay Karen, She's Fired. Happy now? I've just come back from a quick trip to the States via 2 days in Germany. Business, don't ask. So, of course, being British and having read so much about people's experiences in places like the Wall of Marts, well, I had to see one for myself. I'll admit I went to a load of other places, and I can't remember what uniforms people wore, so details are sparse in that respect. This story starts with me walking through Walmart, at once impressed with the range and the prices, and faintly horrified by some of the food. As I'm walking, I hear the dreaded harumphing of an approaching needy wild Karen. She wasn't looking at me, but at a teenage girl. Now the girl was wearing jeans, a jacket, and a handbag, and absolutely no uniform. This Karen Karen starts whipping up a storm of demands and threats, and the poor girl seemed like she was about to cry. Something had to be done. I decided that I'd intervene, but before I'd taken 2 steps, a genuine bona fide suit-wearing legend arrived. And alright, I didn't know he was a legend immediately, so I am getting ahead of myself. Legend, booming over Karen's squawking diatribe. What seems to be the problem? Karen was taken aback by his voice, but soon regained hers and started complaining about everything the girl hadn't done, and how she should be fired, blah blah blah. The guy turns to the girl and says, "Right, I'm officially promoting you to customer. You're fired. Enjoy your shopping experience." The girl had clearly figured out what he was doing and couldn't stop grinning. The legend turns back to Karen and says, as the title suggests, "She's fired. Are you happy now?" Karen saw the girl still smiling and decided that she was even less happy, nearly shouting, "But I wanted to get something or the other," and the legend stops it in her tracks and says, "That's a customer that you're harassing. If you continue to harass her or any other customers in the store, I'll have those large men from security haul you out of the shop." Karen harumphed again, albeit more quietly, stuck her nose up in the air and stalked off. As she got to the end of the aisle, the teenager just burst out laughing, and it was such an infectious laugh the legend joined in. Brilliant. Wow, that's so funny. I love reading about Karens. I can't get enough of this sort of stuff. They're fun when they're wholesome, they're fun when they're not wholesome. It's so addicting. And yeah, shout out to this person in this story. The next one is called Karen Can't Understand Basic Kindness. This one's a generally wholesome story with a comedic Karen encounter. Amazing. When I was 17, I worked at McDonald's. Now, the fact that the red and black uniform of McDonald's looks nothing like the blue-centric Walmart uniform has little bearing on this story because, as we know, the only colors a Karen can see are beneath me and my reflection. So I was at Walmart after work, straight out of work. I was still in uniform and my hair was a mess, so I still had my McDonald's hat on. I swung by electronics to check out the games, and while I was looking at them, there was a pretty young kid, like 10, and his mother talking to an employee about what game he wanted to get. I overheard their whole conversation while looking at the games myself. He wanted a Pokemon game but didn't know which one to get. It was between Ruby and Emerald. The kid was clearly into Pokemon, but this was his first time getting one of the games because he just got his first Game Boy and he could only get one. His mum clearly had no idea, and the employee, a very pleasant older gentleman who didn't know beans about something like Pokemon, were trying to puzzle out the difference between the two games. I loved the kid's enthusiasm and totally understood his anxiety about wanting to get the right one. And since I could see his mother and the employee struggling, I went over and I politely interjected myself. As a big fan of the games, I knew an unhealthy amount about them. I explained the general difference between the games and I answered his questions about them, and he ended up going with Emerald. His biggest concern was making sure that he could get a Torchic. After the very relieved adults headed off to the register to check out, I was about to leave when an older woman with her husband got my attention and asked, "I need help with the TVs." I responded, "Sorry, I don't really know anything about TVs." "Well, why not? Aren't you expected to?" She huffed back. I realized that in spite of my uniform, she thought I was an employee. I laughed and I told her, "Sorry, I don't work here. I work for McDonald's." She huffed again and said, "Well, you were helping those people just a minute ago." "Yeah, because I knew the answer and I was able to help." She snorted. "Well, why would you do that if you don't work here?" I was genuinely baffled by the question, and I just looked at her and said, "To be nice?" "Well, I don't know why you would do something like that." I just stared at her like, how do you even respond to that? After a moment of silence, she finally asked, "So can you help me with the TVs or not?" I just said no and walked away. I don't quite understand what about basic human kindness is so confusing, but there it sits. But yeah, the little boy got his Torchic, and at the end of the day, that's what really matters. Oh my god, that's so confusing. Yeah, how do you even respond to somebody like this? What about this do you not understand? Oh, you don't understand any of it? Okay, bye. Like, what the hell sort of situation is that? Oh, you don't work here, but you helped somebody, so that means you do work here? No, it just meant I was trying to help somebody because I knew what they were trying to do. Oh, so why can't you help me with the TV? Like, are you listening? What do you mean? Like, it's so confusing how they're so confused. What do they not understand? The next one is called I Snapped on a Karen. Recently found me a new job that I really enjoy. I worked both my old job at the restaurant and my new one for a while until I was fully able to start the new job. It's been a couple of weeks since I quit the restaurant and I went in to pick up my last check. They're doing to-go orders only, like a lot of places are doing right now. I went up to the cashier station and my friend was the only person working and one cook, so I just started talking to her about what had been going on and my new job and stuff while she got my check from under the counter. The kitchen yelled, "Order up!" That echoed through the whole empty restaurant, so she went to grab the order and I stayed at the front waiting for her to come back. I was standing next to the cashier stand, not behind it. A car pulled up and parked in front of the restaurant in a handicapped spot, and I noticed they didn't have any stickers to park there. I recognized the lady from when I used to work here. She's a total Karen biatch, and every single person working here hated her. She always had many complaints and almost never tipped. She would come in with a group of 2 or 3 more Karens and run the waitresses around for 2 hours and then not tip. She even made a new girl cry one day, so I started to walk to the back to get my friend, and so Karen wouldn't say anything to me. But she obviously recognized me from when I worked here. Some of this is paraphrased because I was so angry that I don't really remember exactly word for word. Karen screaming red in the face, "I want a refund! I'm so fed up with you all not knowing how to do your job." Me, "Let me get you somebody to help." Karen, "No, you will give me my money back right this second. I'm never coming back here again. That girl said that she checked the order, but it's wrong. I was here a few minutes ago and I ordered grilled catfish and there's no tartar sauce in it. How am I supposed to eat fish without any tartar sauce? And I never got the Dr. Pepper I paid for." She looked like she was about to explode with anger. I was starting to feel angry too. Karen, "And I drove here twice already. I want money for the gas I wasted." Me, "Okay, let me go get somebody to help you." I will admit I said it in a snappy way. "I do not appreciate anybody talking to me like that." She noticed and immediately started cussing me out, and my friend came out from the back asking what happened. Karen starts yelling at her and I went to the back. I quickly asked the cook for a tartar sauce while I made a Dr. Pepper. I then walked back up to the Karen and she was still demanding a refund and $50 for gas. There's no way she used $50 of gas. She's insulting my friend and saying I was rude to her. I just want to say what I'm about to do some of you might think is wrong, but after working years in customer service and having to put up with people like her, I saw this as a once in a lifetime opportunity to finally give them a taste of their own medicine. I mean, what are they gonna do, fire me? I don't work there anymore. Me, "Nobody here freaking likes you. You're the biggest piece of crap I've ever met." She looked at me wide-eyed, frozen in shock. "You really think it's okay to just come in here and not tip and then treat everybody like they're worthless? Why are you like this? Always such a nasty attitude, thinking you're better than everybody? I'm sorry that your life is so freaking miserable that you constantly have to put others down. You're a biatch. Here's your stuff and you can shove it up your ass." I set the tartar sauce and the drink on the counter. Not gonna lie, I really thought about throwing it at her, and then I just walked out with my check before she could say a word to me, although I think she was stunned silent. No one probably has ever talked to her narcissistic ass like that before. I went home and I started telling my boyfriend about it, and before I could even get a few sentences out, the owner of the store is calling me. He wanted me to apologize and I said no, so now I'm forever banned from going back there. My friend said that the Karen threw the biggest fit ever after I left, screaming for the manager and the owner, and she almost called the police. Really happy I didn't throw that drink at her now. I did feel bad for leaving her with that mess, but she said she was thoroughly entertained by the situation and she wishes she could have cussed her out too. I really wish I said more to Karen because on my way home I thought of all kinds of stuff I could have said. I think this has been building in me for a while and I finally snapped. Honestly, I don't regret a single word I said to her. Yeah, like the top comment says, don't regret it. I'm sorry you got banned. I think that was a really crappy thing to do when you were just defending the people who you used to work with. The fact that the owner doesn't see that means they care more about a single mean, rude AF customer than the rest of their employees. Yeah, 100%. I don't feel like they should have banned you, OP. Maybe they didn't want to, but they had to or something. It sounded like they understood and they weren't upset at you or something. But yeah, the Karen definitely needed to hear that. Like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't treat people like this. It'd be a good thing if they learnt from stuff like this, but I feel like they don't. The next one is called I wasted a Karen's time and maybe broke her brain. So this happened last Thursday. I was at Home Depot getting jumper cables. I was wearing a blue shirt, so no idea why this Karen thought I worked there, but ours is not, to reason why. I'm looking around for jumper cables, my brain kind of in low power mode, when I hear, "Tell me where the fuses are." I do a half turn and say, what? This woman about mid-50s yells at me, "Speak English, you," insert Mexican slur here. Keep in mind, I'm white, like super white, so I admit to having some voice acting skills and a twisted sense of humor. So I answered her in a Mexican accent that was maybe one step above Speedy Gonzalez. In my defense, I didn't have time to prepare a better voice. I say, "Oh, sorry, Mila Punta. How can I help you?" "Where are the fuses? I need them for my house." Me, "Are they for your house or for your car?" Her, "I just said they're for my house." Me, "Okay, I can show you." I then led this woman around the store. As a rule, Home Depot is huge. I'd get to one aisle, look around and say something like, "Oh no, they must have moved them. They must be over here." Good thing I was wearing a mask to hide my crap-eating grin. After maybe 10 or 12 minutes of this, she finally calls me out, saying how I'm the worst ignorant employee here. And to be fair, she had a point. She then, of course, demanded to talk to a manager. I said, "He's at the front desk, but I can come with her because I have to keep helping customers." Her, "Where's your name tag? I'm gonna get you fired." Me, "Oh no, I forgot my name tag. Me llamo Miguel with a Y." She stormed off. I almost forgot to get jumper cables before I left. I did get them, then headed to the self-checkout. When I get to the checkout, Karen is still yelling at the front desk. I'm barely keeping it together as she yells about Miguel with a Y. Karen sees me and points, "That's him, Miguel with a Y. Fire him now." Then the best part, the manager starts to reprimand me. I mean, how bad is employee turnover when he doesn't even know somebody doesn't work there? I then answer in my normal flat Midwest white guy voice, "Sorry, what's this about? I don't work here and I came in for jumper cables." The manager looked confused and didn't really say say anything. Her brain just stopped, I guess. Karen hears my voice, starts screaming not even real words. Did an angry Karen dance. I didn't burst out laughing, which I think means I should get an Oscar or something. I buy the cable, say to no one really. Wow, this never happens at Lowe's. And I walk out. Why do these people convince themselves that random customers work at a place? Like, what do you mean? Like, oh yeah, you definitely work here. OP was wearing a blue shirt, nowhere even close to a uniform. But no, you definitely work there, OP. And also, you didn't even say anything. They chose you as their target and they start yelling at you. Where are the bloody fuses? That's scary that you can be shopping and then randomly somebody just starts yelling at you because they think you work there. I love reading this sort of stuff, but it's definitely concerning. The next one is called Karen Follows Me into the Men's Restroom. A few weeks ago, I was at my local big box bookstore looking for good clearance items before the store closed permanently. The dead mall it was attached to is being demolished. The store has no dress code, but the employees do wear lanyards, and I wasn't. So I was browsing around my preferred sci-fi section when I realized I needed to use the nearby restroom, so I headed in that direction, which happened to also be next to the mid-store customer service counter. Karen notices me, positions herself directly in front of me, and blocking my path to the urinary destination. I don't know why you don't keep that desk staffed, but I really need your help finding my book. Are you gonna help me or not? Not, I say. Remembering the urgency of my business, and I step around her with a variation of I don't work here, continuing to my destination, thinking that'll be the end of the encounter. It's not to be. I hear her voice rising in pitch and volume, on its way to full Karen Banshee as she literally follows me into the men's room, and I'm convinced she was about to grab my arm and pull me around to face her. Being conscious of social norms about public exposure, I made it into a stall and I locked the door for privacy. That didn't stop her from knocking on the door and threatening to get me fired before she heard the really solid stream hit the water, and I'm convinced realized for the very first time what it was she'd done. I heard her embarrassed sounding squeak and huff, and she hightailed it out of there. I finished my thing and I washed my hands, and I came out to witness her being escorted out of the store by a properly lanyarded employee. I only caught the tail end of the conversation where Karen stated she was never coming here again, and the employee had a classic response, neither am I, we're closing. Yeah, like this comment says, it's so cute to hear a lot of these stories end with, I'm never coming here again. Aw, you mean that, Karen? Promise? Pinky swear. I thank you from the bottom of my foot. Yeah, like, oh no, you're never gonna come back? What an awful shame. You're telling me we don't have to deal with you again? Oh no. What a tragedy. But yeah, once again, a beautiful story, and I'm excited for the next one. Karen recommended I be fired from the dollar store. I was in a dollar store trying to check out, but delayed because Karen was busy complaining to the cashier about the quality of the products in the dollar store. To which I said, Karen, if you don't like the quality here, then go somewhere more upscale, like Walmart, or if you got the budget, Target. She then asked for a manager, because that's what Karens do. The manager came, and for the next solid 2 minutes, she was complaining to the manager about how her staff were very rude, and they were suggesting that she should shop at Walmart or Target, and how insane it is to hire staff that promotes the competition. The cashier is smirking, and I'm smiling from ear to ear. Karen finishes it off by saying, if I were you, I'd fire such an employee, to which the manager said, which employee said that? To which Karen and the cashier all pointed at me, standing there with a Coke and a bag of chips, and then the manager goes, he's not an employee, to which Karen says, then why is he here? Manager looks at me and looks at her and goes, buying stuff? Oh, that's so funny. Why are you there, Karen? You're doing the exact same thing. Did you forget what shopping is? Wait a second, you came here to buy stuff? You came here to do what I'm doing? No, that doesn't make sense. I don't even know what I'd do if I met somebody this confusing. The next one is called My How the Tables Have Turned in This Restaurant. I used to work at a fast food place, similar to Chipotle, but not Chipotle. There was one regular customer, we'll call her Karen. Karen and her family always ate in the restaurant, made a huge mess, would even say to her kids, don't worry, they get paid to clean your mess. Whenever she was done eating, she'd make a fake complaint just to get free food. The franchise owner of the store didn't want any trouble, so he always refunded her. I quit this store about 1.5 years ago. The other day I went there as a customer. Some of the people who I worked with were still there. As I sat down to eat, Karen walked in and sighed. As always, she brought her family. However, today was different. Today we were out of a particular sauce that happened to be Karen's favorite, and Karen of course got mad. The owner wasn't in today, by the way. I don't remember word for word the conversation, so I'm paraphrasing here. Karen, this is an outrage. How do you not have my favorite sauce? Get me your manager. Manager, we apologize that we ran out. We will have more tomorrow when our truck order comes in. Karen, but I'm here now. This is why you guys suck. The food is terrible. Me, well, Karen, why do you come here then? Karen looks at the manager. Are you gonna let him talk to me like that? Fire your employee. Me smiling. I don't work here anymore, Karen. I quit 1.5 years ago. I'm a customer today, and I'm gonna say something that everybody here has wanted to tell you forever. ever. Screw you, Karen. You cause everybody here more stress than any other customer that walks in that door. At this point, Karen has a shocked look on her face, and her family leave. All of the staff laugh and they thank me. Hopefully she'll never walk through that door again. Yeah, I know it's immature, but I know what it's like being on the other side of the counter dealing with crappy customers like her. Yeah, and that's so understandable, OP. Also, I feel like that's enough for today. That was a beautiful episode, but we need something wholesome. Oh, that doodle guy won. So much struggle. I hope it gets better. Universe, give me a sign. Oh, cute. And the universe answered, stay strong, little birdie, you got this. Somewhere in the world there's a tree that sprouted the same day that you were born, and it's been growing along with you. Cute. Yeah, like the top comment says, that's oddly comforting. Wherever that tree is, I do hope it's doing good. Yeah, shout out to our birth trees. Oh yeah, this one. Here's that moving box you asked for. Where are you moving to anyway? Into the box. Oh, cute. The little house looks perfect. Happily sitting at the window. That one's by the little world of Liz. You drive past a car. There's a dog inside. The dog makes eye contact with you. The dog's smiling. Oh my god. Best day ever. No, but for real, that is a good feeling. And on that beautiful note, thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful time. And if you did and you want to see more episodes like this, make sure you like and subscribe. And the comment of the day today goes to Kitty Future 1069. This is the perfect video to listen to when releasing a mouse that you caught in your dorm room. Well, I'm so happy that it is. To be honest, that's a sentence I never felt like I'd say, but I'm happy I did. And yeah, thank you for watching the videos. I'm happy they can help. There's a lot more videos to come. Okay, I'm out of here. Thank you for all the support, guys. Make sure you look after yourself and make sure you have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. And you know what I'm about to say because I say it every single day. Bye!